Welcome in, everybody, to our latest live broadcast. My name is Carey Holzman, and today we're bringing on a special guest that's going to join us here in just a minute. But first, a shout out to our friends at VIP-URCDKEys. That's where I go to get my Windows and Office license keys for my business, for my customers. Of course, I have to use real, legitimate license keys, and I need that support if there's any problems with activation. And they've got my back and saved me money and keep me competitively priced. I played this video for you guys that watch us regularly. You've seen this video before, but as an example of how you would find the links I'm referring to, they're in our video description. So if I think if I click this button here, you'll see a previous video I've done. And if you scroll down below the title, you'll see the little first gray box there. Click on that, hit the more button, and you'll see everything we're talking about, links to the products or the services, including the links for Windows and Office license keys. Now, you don't have to use those links. You could go to VIP-URCDKEys by hand if you want to. They're not commission-based links, but they sell a lot of other products. It could be time-consuming for you to find what you're looking for. So here in this example, we've got Windows 11 Pro. You'll notice the price. Well, when you hit the Buy Now button, it's going to ask you to sign in. This is free to create an account. They need a place to send your receipt and your download link for the software, as well as your activation key privately. Then if you want to save a little money, and you don't have to, you could pay that price if you want. But if you want to save 25%, put my name in the promotion code and you'll save 25% more if you want to. Again, not commission based. Don't do it for me. If you want to pay the extra 25%, don't let me get in your way. After you submit your order, then you'll go through whatever process you want to pay. Click on whichever the means of payment you want to utilize, and then follow the on-screen steps as you would for any other online payment. Within about 2 minutes, you're going to get an email with the download link and receipt of your purchase and your product key. It doesn't matter if it's day or night, weekend, holiday, it's always within about 2 minutes. If you have any problems, they have 24/7 live chat support. And of course, if there's still any problems, you reach out to me directly. I don't know of any other content creators that will stand behind personally a product they're not personally selling, but that's how much I endorse and believe in this company. And normally a business would never disclose where they're getting their components from. That's a good way to go out of business, because you're showing people how they can work without you. And that's what I do here. It doesn't make any sense to stay in business that way, but I don't service the world. I service a pretty small area, pretty close to where I live. And so everybody else around the world, as far as I can tell, wouldn't have hired me to begin with. And if they want to know where I get trusted license keys, and the price I pay, by the way, is the same. So I'm just sharing that with you. Now, joining us today, first of all, super excited. Good friend of the show, known him for many, many years. His name is Marvin Bee. He's a independent boutique computer repair technician with his own business, MB Systems. Sometimes likes to be referred to as Uncle Marv. And I think what I'll do right now is welcome him in and let him introduce himself. So here we go. Uncle Marv, welcome in.
Thanks, Carey. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my friend. Always good to see you. What has been going on?
Well, you know, typical stuff. Crazy customers. Just because it's summer and kids are out of school doesn't mean the businesses get any easier to support. So still doing a lot of that.
Well, for the people who aren't familiar with you, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. Tell us how you got started and where you're at today.
All right. So my name is Marvin, and I run I call it a boutique MSP shop, because I only do business support, which I started doing in '97 after leaving a computer repair shop where I basically, built and repaired computers. But we did a lot of support for businesses. Our boss would not let us go on site to the businesses. We had to do that either after hours or on the weekends, which really meant Sunday because we worked Saturdays. And I decided that I could go out and support these businesses during the day and make just as much, if not more money. So I did that in '97. I am still here doing that. And I support mainly law firms, but I do support other businesses. We've had medical offices, architects, but only business support. And we do them under the managed services umbrella. While I don't want to call myself a full-blown MSP, we do work in the managed services space. We're not open 24/7. We're open during the week, like most of our clients. If they need after hours or, rush support, on the weekends or stuff, they can get it. They just have to pay extra. But we do everything. I don't do as much computer building anymore, but we still, work with servers and computers. We still supply those. A lot of companies don't anymore. They want to push everybody to the cloud. We don't. We've got a lot of businesses that, for the most part, still need on-prem servers, so we support those. We also do all the stuff around managed security, 365 management, and that's pretty much it, Carey. I don't know how much else people want to know unless you want to ask me some specific questions.
Well, do you have a podcast?
Oh, I do.
Maybe you could tell us a little about that.
Okay, so I am host of the IT Business Podcast. You actually see it here as Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast. And I guess the reason it's called Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast, because that was a way to distinguish it from all the other IT business podcasts. That was a nickname given to me many, many years ago. I am a real uncle, so it's not like, I'm a creepy old guy that just uses the uncle monitor. But I took over a show back in 2016. It was originally called Podnuts Pro, and it was a show that took the residential independent computer repair shop and stuff. And if you wanted to support business, well, the Pro Show was just that. We helped people understand how to get into business, how to work with businesses, how the stack may be a little different in dealing with businesses. So I worked with that show for a while. It was given to me completely in 2017 or 18, I can't remember. I rebranded in 2021 to the IT Business Podcast because I wanted it to be a little bit more universal. I wanted it to appeal to all technicians, managed service repair, system administrators, solo techs, and all of that. And we talk about just about anything in the IT space.
Now, you and I are very similar in a lot of ways. I started as building computers professionally in 1991, and I ended up, moving around a bit from Intel and a few other places doing corporate desktop support. And on my spare time would do some jobs for the employees. Oh, hey, can you, you're working at this big corporation, and the employees go, can you work on my home computer? And I'd take on the work. And then eventually had enough work on the side that I said, okay, I'm just going to do this full time. And that was probably around 95 to 97. We'll call it 96, about the same time you did. And still working in it to this day. I do get motivation from all of the enthusiast content creators on YouTube that, they only, in my experience, and I'm always trying to find a better way to explain this, but people think I can change a hard drive out, so I'm a tech. And they don't seem to understand that's half the job. The other half of the job, especially if you're self-employed, is marketing and billing. There's the accountability and responsibility, expectations of the customer being met. There is the, showing up on time on a regular basis. If you're going to do something and say you're going to be somewhere, you better be there. You better be presentable. You better have good hygiene. You better get along with your coworkers. Like, just doing the work, I don't know, would you agree? That's not really the majority of the job.
So I do think that, yes, people that start out in tech, especially if they come from a job where they worked for somebody else and they think, I can do it better, or they know what the boss charges and they're like, they're making a ton of money off of me. I can go out and charge the same thing and make that money for myself. Well, people don't always realize that not all that money is just, for you. It's for the business. It's for all those things you mentioned. It's all the licenses that you have to get to run a business in a city, a state, to collect sales tax, to market, to buy uniforms, to buy shirts, to buy equipment, to lease space if you're going to rent an office. And if you're not going to rent an office, well, you're still going to need some sort of space or storage that you do stuff. You got to have your vehicle to get from place to place. Not all work can be done remotely. So there's all of those expenses that go along with it. And then of course, you've still got to do some sort of HR, even if it's just you. You've got to make sure that you are doing the things to present your business in a way that other businesses will want to work with. You've got to do business etiquette. And if you are doing proper marketing and you're going out and doing networking, you've got to, that's time that you can't bill for. So you have to find a way to offset what you're billing to cover the times that you're not able to bill. And then, of course, if you get employees, then, all hell breaks loose.
Well, I'm that guy. I said, why am I doing this for Intel when I could be doing it for myself? And why am I giving another employer half my income when I could have 100% of my income? One of the very first lessons I learned very quickly was, where did this work come from? half of this job was just finding the work. Doing the work was the other half. And then there's yet another half. There's three halves to this.
Yeah.
Straight back, which is the billing, the inventory control, the scheduling, everything, customer service, get warranty work you got to do for free. Or I understand some people in the chat are also hearing my echo. So I may have to go grab a set of headphones in order for me to hear Marv. For some reason, it's playing my audio, and I'm a little rusty with StreamYard, but I don't know why StreamYard's doing this to me tonight. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to you, Marv, while I sneak away and grab some headphones. And one of the reasons Marv is here is the company named Ingenious sent us some networking equipment to review, and I don't have that level of customer. And I thought I'd hold on to the equipment just in case any of my customers want to level up. But most of my customers are, if you have small customers, Marv, then I have micro customers. And they're all businesses, but they're maybe 10 employees. So this Ingenious level equipment is fantastic, but I don't service that kind of clientele. And after I had it for a while, it was, especially with things going the way they're going in the industry, my clients aren't spending any money right now. And you and I talked, and I said, does this seem like something you're familiar with? You use that stuff all the time. So we sent it over to you. And I am curious, I know you've already done a review on it, but maybe sort of a summary of what the equipment is, who it's best intended for, and whether or not it's something you would use. Under what circumstances would that provide the right solution?
Yep, I can do that. So I did do a small review, and I'll grab the link if you want me to put it in the show notes, but we're probably going to do a lot of that here as well. So Ingenious is a company that I've actually done a lot of work with. I started using them probably around 2018 or so, after I had gone through looking for a replacement for HP switches that I had gone to after using Netgear for so many years. Around 2005, I got to the point where I said, I've got to upgrade my switches. I can't be using what I can find at Best Buy. And I wanted to start using enterprise type stuff. And I did HP for a few years, and HP switches were expensive and actually not in stock at the time I was looking for. And I came across another company that was doing stuff, Arachnus, which at the time was through a company called IO8. But I came across Ingenious, and they worked just fine for me. And one of the reasons that I like them is that they were a layer 2 managed switch, which is what I put in all my businesses. I understand that, I know that Carey works with a lot of people that would not need a managed switch. I know that a lot of home users, home enthusiasts, even people doing home labs may not need a fully managed switch that we're talking about here, but there are times where even small businesses can benefit from a managed switch. So while he's getting his head set, let me tell you what he had in the package that he sent me. This is all stuff that Ingenious had sent him, and it was an Ingenious ESG 620 gateway, which they call it a SD-WAN security gateway. So I had that set up. There was an Ingenious ECS 1528P, which is a 24-port PoE plus gigabit switch. There was 2 of the Ingenious Wi-Fi 7 indoor access points, ECW 520. And then there was also a long-range outdoor access point, which I did not set up, just because I didn't want to go through the hassle. I don't have one of those set up at any of my clients, so I didn't want to go through getting a cable, punch through a wall so I can put it up outside, even if it was temporary. So that is the one thing that I did not hook up, I should say. And I do have a second camera that if Carey comes back and he wants to throw it up on the screen.
Oh, I'm here. Oh,
okay.
It's not fixing my echo is still there.
Actually, that sounded better. Even
sounds
just
better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, something's not right. Very strange.
We'll see if the listeners pick up. It's much better sounding to me.
Okay. Well, let's go to your other camera.
Yeah. So I got
go full screen.
Yeah.
And
all right, so this is, I actually have it set up in my office, and I apologize for the banners behind it. It is not meant to show off my podcast sponsors, but it's meant to hide the mess in my office behind it. But you can see there, I've got, going from top to bottom is one of the Wi-Fi access points. I actually have the second one set up on another side of the office there. And then I've got the SD-WAN gateway. Right below that is the Ingenious 24-port switch, and then I actually have the Arachnus 24-port switch underneath just to show the differences there. I've got a PoE phone connected to it, and then all those other cables there are coming to some network testers that I have there. So I am actually running my side of the stream through this equipment. So this is going through the SD-WAN gateway of Ingenious rather than my regular equipment, which right now is the Ubiquiti gateway. I switch back and forth between Ubiquiti and SonicWall for my network because I still have a lot of people where we do SonicWall, and then I've been moving some of my smaller clients to Ubiquiti equipment over the last, I don't know, say 18 months or so. And I did not have a Ubiquiti switch to throw up here to do a comparison, but I did have a Arachnus switch, so that is that there. So that is the equipment that we're running. And I'm going to say it is all decent equipment. I'm not going to try to say that if you support businesses and you want to be what's considered best in class, I'm not going to say that Ingenious falls into that category, although I will say that Ingenious does normally compete against a lot of those higher end switches. So if you are an HP, Aruba, Cisco person, but you're looking for a set of gear that is good for your clients, but not as expensive or don't require monthly fees for management, Ingenious would be the thing to go. The switches, I'll be honest, are probably the best out of their equipment. I was not impressed with the gateway. And I can tell you why if we do a little testing here, but it was losing packets, but the gateway works. I mean, obviously I'm working here right now. Nothing's really dropped, but if I do some heavy testing on it, it drops a lot of packets. And That's just not good in any of the things that I want to support there. In terms of the specs, the Gateway has, it's a dual, let's see. Nope, it's a quad core 2.2 gigahertz processor. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM, and it's got 16 gigs of flash storage. It has 8 by 2.5 gig ports. Now, they also downgrade to gig 110, but 2.5 gig is what all those ports are. And the SFP ports are also 2.5 gigs. And then it's got a consort port, and 4 of the ports are PoE. So if you're looking for an office that, you know, you've only got 4 or 5 people, this might be an option to put that gateway in there, and you can have probably a little bit of everything if you've got connections from the gateway to all of your devices, including PoE phones and switches. 8 people, or 8 ports, I should say, would work just fine. The switch is 24-port PoE plus. Now, all of its networking ports, the copper ports, are only a gig. So you'd have 24 by 1 gig in the ports. The SFP ports are actually 10 gig. So all 4 ports of those are 10G, which is good. The switching capacity, which is, if you don't know what capacity is, meaning if every port was running full throttle, you would get 128 gigs of throughput that you should be able to do without noticing any slowdown. I will say that's a theoretical limit. So if you're ever doing testing on a switch, you might find some that will bog down less than that, and some that actually might do all of that. But I wouldn't use that as something to say, I'm going to push that limit on a regular basis. All 24 ports do supply PoE on the switch, and they do both the 8023AT and AF PoE wattage. So if you're worried about what PoE support there, it does that. It has all the regular L2 features for layer 2 switches. So if you are doing stuff like VLANs and you want to do QoS and you want to do static routing, DHCP relay, all of that, it does do all of that. It has SNMP support, all 3 versions, 1, 2, and 3. You can do SSH, Telnet, Armon. Again, these are probably things that most of you don't ever worry about. And to be honest, I don't worry about a lot of them. I do worry about the SNMP. I do worry about the L2 devices. I do a lot of VLANs. Let's see, especially for Wi-Fi. This has a voice VLAN if you want to do that. And trying to think of anything else. And then the Wi-Fi is a Wi-Fi 7 unit. I'll be honest, I don't think I've tested it for Wi-Fi 7. But these access points, these are only 2 by 2 by 2 when it comes to the antenna. So they're not going to be the most powerful. But again, if you've got a small office and you just need some access points for connectivity and stuff, 2 by 2 by 2 is just fine.
I think my audio feedback's coming from you. Is it possible you have a YouTube page open with the sound not muted or a mixer setting? It still could be me. I'm just running out of ideas.
Well, the only thing I had was I had the laptop open so I could add in the second camera. So I just cut that out.
Check 1, 2. That fixed it. Okay. In theory, I should be able to unplug these.
And there we go.
Man.
So,
well, between 2 checks, I think we got it figured out. Let me see.
So,
let me see.
I just heard
1,
me.
2.
I just heard me.
You're hearing yourself?
I'm hearing me.
Okay.
But
and I'm hearing me a little bit too. Do you have audio cancellation turned on StreamYard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I've got echo and I've got reduced mic background noise.
Well, maybe I'm putting my headphones back on then, because it sounds like echo cancellation isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
we thought we had it figured out.
we're sort of halfway there, but that's okay. Well, as I'm plugging this back in, where would you deploy this kind of equipment? Can you give me an example of a theoretical? What kind of an office? A doctor's office, an attorney? Like, obviously, a residential customer in general doesn't need this kind of stuff. A real estate agent working out of their house probably doesn't need this stuff.
I would say no. This would be your small business. This would be somebody that needs a firewall, basically something more than what their ISP is giving them. For instance, if you've got a customer that in our area, it's Comcast that is supplying most of the internet, and the Comcast modem / router is basically, it's just a router. It doesn't really give any firewall capabilities. They are getting better at providing security. They have a product called Security Edge, which you pay extra for, and that is Comcast's own DNS filtering. I have it disabled and not used, so I don't have any customers that are using that. But in terms of where this would go, in terms of this specific configuration, if we're using the gateway and the switch and the access points, I'd say any business, 10 people or so, this actually would work for, I'm not going to get specific in terms of the type of business, because it really depends on how much security and protection a business needs. If it is a coffee shop, if it is a, solo attorney's office that is not doing any of the cloud-based applications, there is a lot of features that are not in this gateway. So the gateway is probably the one limiting factor that I would put on there. It's better than nothing, but I wouldn't put it in the same category as a Sonic Wall or a FortiGate or Sophos or anything like that. This is the old Linksys router, is the way I would put it. It's something, but it's not good. The switch I'd put anywhere. The switch I would put in a law office. I would put in an architect's office. The switch is powerful enough to push heavy data applications, AutoCAD files, pictures, video. The switches can go anywhere. The access points, I did mention it's a 2x2x2, good for basic connectivity. I would not put this in my medical office where they were uploading x-rays and videos and pictures and 30 people walking around with iPads and stuff. I would choose a much higher end access point.
Now, when you say with regards to the other devices being, you're saying Ingenious isn't at this level. It's also not at that price level, is it? I mean, there's a pretty significant, I'm hearing myself, it's throwing me off. Significant price difference as well as capabilities. Like, don't they go hand in hand?
Yeah, but I would put, here's the problem. I would put Ingenious at the same price level as Ubiquity right now. Ubiquity just has a much better ecosystem than Ingenious, but you can get the Ingenious ecosystem if you pay for their MSP console where you can manage everything in the cloud. So price-wise, I mean, all the switches, if you were to go out and look for just basic layer 2 network switches, they're all kind of in that same area. I think this switch is going to go for $699. And you can find a similar switch for Ubiquity for that price. You can find a PoE++, which is just more PoE capabilities. in power for $899. And then if you really want to go berserk, $1,099. You can find that in the Genius as well. You can find those mid-range prices as well as the higher end prices. I just would not put it at the same level of a Cisco. It just does not have that type of security capability.
All right, I'm going to check my audio again. I'm still fidgeting over here. It's been a long time since I
I see a couple of people in the audience also saying it's fine. I don't hear it.
Yeah, it's coming back to me.
Are you running OBS through StreamYard?
I am, and I'm starting to wonder. OBS is in my current is a beta, and I don't. Wait a minute. Maybe I just. No, I thought maybe I just found it. No, it's not there. Yeah. It's coming from somewhere. This is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's throwing me off.
It's not coming through the live stream though. I'll tell you that.
It's monitoring. Yeah, for me.
Okay.
So where it's coming from, I could shut down OBS. Let me put you full screen for a second.
Okay.
Let's try something. We'll go to full screen for Marv. And I'm going to change. Let's see.
Since I'm on screen, I'll talk a little bit more. Let me look at some other features of the Ingenious. The max PoE, I was going to try to find that. Let's see, the total PoE budget, which is something that if you're ever looking at a PoE switch, that is something you want to look for, because a lot of times you can run PoE full on either half the ports or all the ports based on the wattage. So 240 watts is your PoE budget, which actually is a pretty decent, healthy size. So if you take 240 divided by 24 ports, that's going to give you 10 watts per port. And that is enough to run your PoE phones. That's enough to run access points. So you would not really have an issue if you had to use this switch for only PoE. You could run all of your PoE equipment on there. But I'm just going to say phones and access points. If you've got some other types of devices that require more PoE, that is going to run you at 13 to 15 watts, then it just makes the other ports, you would lose basically a port or two for the total wattage.
Let me check my audio. You can hear me?
Yes.
Now it's perfect. So something with my OBS. All right. Now I know where to go to look for it.
Okay.
Jeez, what a pain. Now, wait a minute. I want to take this one more. Just because I'm not satisfied yet. Let me unplug these headphones. I just really despise wearing these headphones.
Gotcha.
They're very isolating. And let's see. How does everything sound now? Anything change?
Actually, still just as good. No echo that I can hear.
One more time.
No echo.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
You're good.
Okay, good. This is how I normally do it.
I hear me.
Nothing like troubleshooting live.
Yep, I hear me.
So. You're hearing you?
Yep.
So that's got to be the audio cancellation just isn't functioning right on StreamYard. That's bizarre when something was working so well. Or echo cancellation doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
Huh. So now it's flipped over to you.
Yeah, it's weird, but I hear it as if it's coming through your speakers.
Like it is. It's coming out of my speakers, which is why I'm not wearing headphones. But then when it feeds back into the microphone, StreamYard's supposed to
cancel it out. Yeah.
And it's not doing it.
It's supposed to do the mixed minus.
Yes, exactly. And
actually, I haven't heard myself the last few seconds, so
maybe it's adjusting.
Maybe so. I just saw a comment in the chat about surveillance cameras. Yes, the surveillance cameras, you can run surveillance cameras off of these. Most of the surveillance cameras, again, are going to be maybe a higher wattage. So you would not be able to get all 24 ports off of, say, 2K or 4K cameras. If you were just running regular cameras, then yes, you would be able to do that. HDs, probably, I'd have to check on the brand. I know that Ubiquiti, the HD cameras run less than 9 watts, so you can do that. But once you get to 2K and 4K, the wattage goes up.
Do your clients use surveillance cameras?
I have a few that do. Some of them I actually got because I offered them the Ubiquiti solution that had the whole ecosystem. Before that, I had a medical office where we brought in a product called Lumu, which was from that IO8 company. And it was a specialized camera system that is, it's a tier above what most people are putting in with the Hike Visions. It was a much better product. And I did it because we could give the owner access to the cameras through an app on their phone instead of having to open up firewall ports and do all of this stuff. Now, this goes back probably 10 years. So I know that a lot of camera systems now do that and provide that app capability. But 10 years ago, there were very few doing it, and Lumo was this one. And we ran the cameras off PoE for that. And then I actually added a Synology system because they added a second floor to that office. And they didn't want to pay for the full system on that floor. So we put in a Synology box and did, I forget the cameras. We didn't do, oh no, I remember what happened. We took over the camera system. Their NVR failed from their previous camera guy. He was nowhere to be found. We put in a Synology box with licenses to take over their cameras. And I forget the name of them. They're an off-brand camera, but they worked. And we did all of that.
Tell me the reasoning when choosing a NAS or for this customer, why Synology and not QNAP or a SUSE store, or why not roll your own with TrueNAS or Unraid?
So at the time, Synology came with the built-in camera apps. And the only issue at the time was you had to buy licenses once you got above 2 cameras. But it was so I'll just say this. I've chosen Synology over all the other NASs because of their ecosystem, because of the apps that they run, the active backup, the hyper backup, virtual machines, snapshot technology, the camera station, and I can also run other apps on there like Domots, my network monitoring tool. So that's the advantage over all of the other NASs that I gave to Synology. I didn't have to not only roll my own, I didn't have to, create special Dockers or whatever to try to make things work. Synology just worked. That was why I did that.
You're saying create special Dockers.
Dockers.
Not doctors.
Yes, Docker.
Right?
Yeah.
For people unfamiliar with the term Docker, briefly, what's a Docker?
So I'll be honest, I'm not a Docker user, but basically a Docker
I play one on TV.
Yes. It's almost in a sense a virtual machine or container of which you can install and run apps.
Yeah, that's almost the way I explained it, almost word for word. I would say it's like a virtual machine that, well, it's an application that runs virtual machines that, how did I say, that are in the form of something called containers. So each thing you want to run, which is essentially one big file, has a name. It could be Windows 11. You could run within, let's say, Docker, or you could run Proxmox within Docker, or you could run Plex. Then these things would be just like if you had a virtual machine and you had these things running in a virtual machine. Each one would have its own file name. It'd be a big file, typically the size of the amount of RAM that you're reserving for it. And I know for a lot of people, it goes right over their heads, but I think that's about one of the easiest ways to explain of like running an operating system within an operating system. Have you played around in that vein with the built-in Windows 11 sandbox?
No.
So do you know about it?
I do, but
Okay.
I'll answer your question and at the same time answer some questions in the chat that are asking me about why use the closed, Synology when there's open source options available. I made the decision a long time ago to support my business clients with industry accepted practices. And when I say that, it's not to say industry standard or industry best in class. I wanted it to be where if I installed something for a customer and they fired me, I wanted the next person to be able to come in and say, yes, I know that system, we can help you. And I wanted it to be name brands. I wanted it to be something where any reputable IT business would be able to come in, and if they don't support the product, they would at least be able to get support for the product, either from the manufacturer or from a partner or something along those lines. So that's why I ended up going that route, where I wasn't going to try to make my own solution just so that I could, make it cheaper, or even if I realized that the open source product might be better. To me, it had to be something that the business would be able to, get support for without me. Now, in a lot of ways, that did not lock my clients into me, but that was a reason that they were happy with me, because they didn't feel like I was handcuffing them in a degree. So I made it to where, look, I'm going to be as open and as honest with you as possible. There were some products that, yes, you can run to the store and get yourself. You can go to Amazon and buy them. What I would hope you would do is let me get it. Let me get the things that I've worked with, the things that I have tested, the things that I have standardized my business on. That way it makes supporting you that much easier, because if I have to support you different from everybody else, I'm going to charge more, because if I have to, do something special, well, that deserves a special charge. So that was another reason why when I went with Synology, it was something where all of the apps, I didn't have to build them. They were easily installable. They were workable. Now, I don't always tell my customers they're free apps. I may charge to run those apps, like the backups, because I may choose the backup location, whether it's the C2 built in, whether it's an Amazon product, whether it's Wasabi or things like that. So, but I still wanted to be able to say to a customer, I'm going to give you products that you don't have to worry about getting support from after I leave, whether it's my choice or your choice. Does that answer that question good enough for you, Carey?
Couldn't have said it better myself. I see some corrections there about me, explaining in the chat room there about Docker versus a virtual machine. The problem I have with the explanations that are more complex than mine is that they're more complex than mine. And if you were going to try to explain this to a non-tech savvy customer, but you wanted to be technically accurate, I think you have to pick one or the other. So what I try and do, just to defend myself against my explanation, is I'm not trying to teach people how to be technicians. I'm trying to explain to people that have an interest, which I can't control, the gist of it. And then from there, they can pick up details if they want to, without this becoming a full-blown
Right.
101 to Docker. So sometimes my analogies aren't 100% literal translation, but the idea is that people get the concept. So if somebody says to me, what's the difference between a firewall and antivirus? I'll say, well, because they're confused sometimes. Well, why do I need one if I have the other one? And I say, well, why do you have a burglar alarm on your house if you have pest control? Like, these are two different things. The pest control is sort of like the antivirus, and the burglar alarm is sort of like the firewall. And that's all they really needed to know. They didn't need to know about level 1, level 2, and level 3 TCP IP layers, but they could. Like, if that sparks interest,
Yeah.
I would encourage them to deep dive into that. But that wasn't my goal. So I hope people understand sometimes my oversimplifications are there to try and find some form of similar common knowledge that we all have generally basic knowledge of, and then use that as a basis to build on just for familiarity, but not technical detail, because that's for a different crowd. It'd be like if you and I were speaking Greek and nobody here speaks Greek, I don't know how much they're going to get out of this podcast, right? So anyway, that's my philosophy. And with regards to, yes, well, I'm using this equipment because this is the equipment I know how to use. And where you would say, if I have to use your equipment, I have to charge you more, I would back that up one step. You're absolutely right. There's nothing you said that I'm correcting, but I would back it up one step to say, look, if I'm not familiar with how to configure this, it's going to take me longer. I'm billing you by the hour. Okay. So if you're going to put other equipment here that I don't know, that I'm not familiar with, I have to get familiar with it. And when I work on it, if I don't work on it very often, I'm going to forget. And every time I go to work on it, it's like starting over again. And something that could be an in and out job, if you use the equipment I'm recommending, because I'm familiar with it, could be something that takes much, much longer. And since I'm billing you for my time, it's going to cost more.
Right.
I think we're saying the same thing. I'm just trying to justify, like, I'm not being nasty. Well,
No.
if you're not going to, I'm going to punish you by charging you more if you don't use what I want you to use. That could be misinterpreted when it's like, no, I'm charging you the same regardless.
It could be. But the other side to that I didn't say is I'm struggling with getting to a point where the managed services area is really big on MSPs telling customers, if you don't use our stack, we can't support you. And there are times where I will do that when it comes to my basic stack, my remote management software, my antivirus EDR, my threat locker protection, my remote access. I try to have at least 2 options in my stack for all those categories that my customers, we're going to use one of the 2 in your scenario. But if it's not part of my stack, I have gotten to the point where some customers, I will say, if you get that on your own, I'm not supporting it, which means you'll have to go somewhere. I'll support everything else that I, have access to, I've configured. And part of it is just to say that, one, it takes away, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. The best way I can explain it is when I started letting customers buy their own computers, it became a nightmare because I would go to install a machine and something didn't work. And here I am stuck trying to figure out why. Do I call the manufacturer and try to get support for it? Do I build a customer for that? If it's not something that can be repaired and we've got to send it back, who takes care of that? And so it just got to the point where that's where I would tell customers, if you get it, I'm charging extra. Otherwise, if you let me get it, I'll set it up, I'll test it, I'll make sure it works before we get to your office. And then if something breaks, that's on me and I'll take care of that. So that's kind of how I got to that thing. And then it was, people wanted to do their own antivirus solution, or they would read about, especially in the world of AI right now, we are getting to that point where customers can do their own research. They can ask, how do I fix this? Oh, I can run this PowerShell. And we have to say, well, if you run it and you break it, I'm going to charge you to fix it. So it's a tough road for a lot of us. And I know that there are a lot of technicians that are like, you know what, I'm okay with it. If you break it, I'm happy to charge you to fix it. Part of my philosophy is I don't want to be caught off guard on a Monday morning because Sunday afternoon you decided to run a script and I've got to change my whole Monday to fix something that if you'd have let me handle it to begin with, I could do it on my time and I can allow for, if something breaks, take care of it. Or if it's something that I've done 100 times and I know how to do it right, it's done. I don't have to worry about it. So that's the balance that we're in. And it's not just MSPs, it's regular technicians, it's system admins, who the boss tells them to install something on a Friday afternoon, and then all of a sudden that text, their weekend is ruined because something didn't go right.
It's a challenge because here's what I've encountered. One, I've had people that want to do things themselves, but ask if they can borrow my tools. Like, I can build my own network cables. Can I just borrow your crimper? I need the crimper. That's what I don't just have it for a hobby. Go buy a crimper. Back then it was like $100 for a nice, RJ45 crimping tool, Cat 5. And I did loan it to one person, and then they claimed they lost it. And I said, man, I need to have that. I've had customers want me to build a computer that's outrageous, and I tell them no. And they go, what do you mean no? Isn't the customer always right? Like, I don't want to support that nightmare of a configuration that's going to fall back making me look bad. I said, but I'll make a recommendation that we start here, and then all these other things you want to add, we'll add them if and when you need them. Because he's wanting me to add, and again, we're talking the 90s, wanted me to add a tape drive backup into this big full-size tower with a RAID configuration, needed a SCSI card, and all this stuff that was quite expensive. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, whatever happened to the customer is always right. I said, I don't want to support that. I don't want my reputation being based on what you cooked. All right, I'm the chef. You cook this, and then you want me to say I cooked it. I'm not doing it. You can find somebody else to do it, and you can pay me to come in and repair it. That's fine. But I warranty what I build, and I'm not going to warranty that. It's similar to, customers go, well, I could buy this router on my own. You absolutely can. And I'll charge you to install it. And if there's any problems with it, that's between you and whoever you bought it from. No different than a mechanic. You bring your own spark plugs to the mechanic and say, will you put these in for me? And those spark plugs don't work. That's not the mechanic's fault. You bring the car back. You say, it's not working right. You say, well, it's not on me. I didn't provide the spark plugs. I did the labor just like you asked me to do. You paid me for my time and my experience to take the engine apart to get those spark plugs in. Now, for whatever reason, you've ordered the wrong spark plugs, or somebody ordered a whole spark plug kit off Amazon that included the spark plug cables, and the cables were the problem. And the whole thing was like $40 when those cables and the kit should have been over $100. And it's like, well, there you go. Now you're going to pay me again. You're going to pay me again if that's what you want to do. So now I just shut that down entirely. I just say, if I'm not providing it, I'm not doing it. And I've told customers, again, we're going to go back to the 90s here. Customer says, I'm thinking of getting an iPhone. I said, well, I want you to know that if you get an iPhone, I won't be able to help you with it. I don't have an iPhone. I don't own Apple products. I don't support Apple products. And Apple doesn't want anybody to work on their products but Apple. So you'll need to take that back to the Genius Bar and reach out to Apple. And you understand that if you choose to buy that, I can't help you with it. And then they buy it anyway. And then they start asking me questions about it. And I say, well, remember when I told you if you bought, I go, I'll tell you what, now that you've already bought it, here's what we can do. You buy me an iPhone and you pay for the monthly service. And as I learn it, I'll teach you. But I'm not going to make that investment just for you.
Yeah, but you're the computer guy. Don't you know everything?
Well, they said, well, I know you have this other customer that's a friend of mine, another business owner, and he has an iPhone and I have an iPhone, and this third party also has an iPhone. So don't you think you should be fixing iPhones? And this is a business owner, not just a customer who thinks that way. And I said, well, you might have a GE refrigerator and they might have a GE refrigerator. Do you think I should start fixing GE refrigerators? And that kind of shut that down. But they would still insist, every customer would do this, that I had as a client, a business owner. Do you know why I'm not getting my email on Outlook I just had my iPhone upgraded at the Apple store, and now my Outlook's not working. I go, look, man, I already told you, I don't know anything about this. Why did you leave there without checking it? And then they're like, what did you just say? I go, you just had the phone at the Apple store. Why didn't you have them check it? And then I'm exhausted. I'm like, all right, let me just see it. I don't know what I'm doing, but let me just see. Let me scroll through. There's the Outlook. I push it. All the email comes up. I go, is this what you were looking for? Is this the problem? And they're just like, you're a jerk. Sorry, I helped. You know, I told you 4 times I don't do this. And then they trap me. You know, I'm there to fix something else. Oh, while you're here, you know, can you look at my phone? I don't know any more about your phone. If you want to buy me one and pay for it, say this, buy me one and pay me for it, because I don't want that education. I don't want the beauty about being self-employed. You can turn away work. I don't want to do that. When customers treat me really well, I'll do more for them. And I think that's true of most small businesses. If you're a good customer to Walmart, or you're a pain in the butt customer to Walmart, Walmart doesn't care either way. But if you're a pain in the butt customer to a small business like me, I can take you or leave you. If you're a good customer to a small business like me, I will bend the rules because I like you. I want your business. It's a pleasure to work for you. I think it's no different than if you leave a good, generous tip to a server at a restaurant. They're more likely going to remember you the next time you come into the restaurant and want you to sit in their station, in their area. They want to serve you versus I have to serve you. And you'll find the service is better. You're going to feel more welcomed. And it's less cold of a business transaction of here's your food and they walk away. And I think that applies mostly to small business owners where big corporations could care less. What do you think about that philosophy?
So obviously the bigger the corporation, the more power they have to listen or not listen. And if you want to take them to court, you know, your attorney versus their attorneys, you're going to lose there. We are getting to a point in time where you made the comment earlier about the customer always being right. Businesses are starting to push back on that, just like you mentioned, but for a completely different reason. I think that customers are beginning to feel a little too entitled, and they believe that everything is a commodity. And, you know, the guy down the street can do it for less. Why don't you do it for that same price? Well, then you have to get into all the dynamics of, well, why are they a lesser price? Why am I a higher price? Is it because I have certifications that they don't have? Do I have equipment they don't have? This whole mess about, you know, Apple, iPhone, you know, Android, consumer cellular, if you want to start throwing in all these other things. We get into the same deal when it comes to our stack, when it comes to, do I support HP or Dell? For almost my entire career, I have been an HP shop. I don't sell Dell, but I will work on Dell computers if we work together to purchase them, that sort of thing. I'll, you know, do that. But if you bring me a Dell out of the box, I'm going to say, no, we're an HP shop. We're getting to a weird time. So I'm not quite sure. Which question did you really want me to answer there, Carey?
Well, so my philosophy is, as a small business owner, when I have a business client, an MSP, I've got them on a monthly retainer, and they're being demanding, and nothing I do is good enough. I don't really want to work for them anymore. I had a client that had a very bad technician, left a lot of things undone, and some of the computers were configured in completely different ways in the same office. One computer, they had a tape drive running. You could hear it whirring, whizz, you know, back and forth. And I said, is that your backup? And they said, yeah. And I said, how often do you change the tape? And they said, change the tape? I looked at it, and I don't know what it was doing, but it wasn't making any backups, okay? It was just, I don't know what it was doing. And I said, well, first of all, this isn't right. Then I looked at the hard drive. It was formatted in FAT32. What? It was limited in size. I want to say it had MBR. I don't know what it was. It was like limited to 2 terabytes when the drive inside of it was like, I don't know, 4 or 8 or something. And none of the other computers in the office were. So I took over and I made everything the same and consistent, regardless if it's Dell or HP. They're all going to be configured the same. Again, because it'll be easier for me to support it when they call. The configuration. If they have any problems and I can't get to them, they can just go sit at another desk for the rest of the day, because all the computers are the same. You just change your location for the day and I'll get to it. You know, unless the server's down and the whole business is down, you can just move to another computer. So that's the philosophy, right? We keep everything moving, fluid.
So let me say this when it comes to customers that get to be demanding. So for the last few years, there has been this movement for all service providers, and I'm not going to say just managed service providers, but service providers in general. If you do IT support, if you do this, you have a master agreement that basically spells out what it is that you will and what will not do based on what you have and do not have. And I have this with several of my customers where only the products that are under management, which means they're in one of my dashboards. So they're either in my monitoring dashboard for my servers and desktops. They are in my cyber management when it comes to their EDR software, that sort of thing. Anything else, we don't support. And that is spelled out in the contract. And that's where I think some of the demanding customers that you're talking about, if they want to have that type of power, then they're going to not only sign the agreement, but they're going to have all of those addendums that if I have to work on something that is not under management, then it's going to be at this hourly rate above and beyond what our monthly, you know, whether it's a retainer, whether it's a service agreement or whatever. I think that's where we're getting to, is where you've got to, what they, you know, the big thing is you've got to set expectations. And the expectations are, I will support what I install. I will support what I manage. And I only will manage what I can see. So if you bring something into the network that I can't see or manage, I'm not going to support it. That's kind of the tactic that I've been doing. And it's not just for hardware only, it's also for software. And that's probably going to be the biggest area that I see we're going to have to deal with, because customers, if you allow them, can basically install whatever they want. They can go to whatever website they want. They can research, they can download. And unless you have a application managing product, something like a threat locker, where you can prevent anyone from installing software, even if they're an administrator, or if you have some sort of privileged access management. Those are the terms that are swirling around our industry right now. Application whitelisting, or application allow listing, I guess is the proper way to say it. As a managed service provider, that's where we're getting to, is we are going to manage every aspect of your IT infrastructure, whether it's hardware, whether it's software, whether it's which websites you can go to on the internet, which browser extensions you can run. A lot of that is what we're dealing with, because the attack surface is so much more than it has been in years past, where things now can just get in anywhere. So if customers want us to protect them from all the bad things that are out there, then we have to be able to manage all of that. And those expectations are probably where we are struggling with the most. So it is going to be a thing. So because I only support businesses, I have probably, I'm going to say, about 80% of that taken care of. 80% of my customers are all on board with, you support what goes in our systems, you put it in there, you manage it. And before we do anything, we'll talk. And if we really want something, you know, you'll either tell us yes or no. And it's very rare that I have to charge those customers extra, because we're working together. And if there's going to be, you know, a learning curve, then yeah, I will obviously charge a little bit of research time or installation time. I'll work with the other company to do whatever. And they're okay with that. Those other 20%, those are the ones where it's getting frustrating. I may not support them. Um, but if they're willing to pay the premium above and beyond cost, then I'll see what I can do. But if I get to a point where I can't support them, or as you said, I don't want to support them, then it's time to send them off.
Well, this one particular customer, so they had this tech, they were sick of him, wasn't getting things done, he wasn't completing jobs. I came in and I completed everything. And they said, "You're like Superman. Where have you been all our lives? We love you." I ate that up. Thank you so much. Now, I love appreciation. The check is great, but the appreciation, I don't know, that's icing on the cake. Now we're into year 2, the same contract, no raise, no increase, same rates, same contract, but now they're expecting more. And one time they called me on a Saturday night and said, server's not working and it's tax time. That's why we're here late Saturday night. And I answered the phone, and I was at a party on the opposite side of town. And I said, well, why don't you just go in the server room and hold the button in until the lights go off and then turn it back on again. And that solved the problem. But in the meantime, I had left the party and I was continuing the call in the car. My night was over because I still had to go home. And then from home, grab my tools and then head out to the opposite side of town. I wasn't happy about it, but it was the right thing to do. And by the time I got home, this thing resolved itself. Well, we had a meeting and they said, listen, we have a bone to pick with you. Remember when I called you about the server? Yeah. Why are we paying you to do your job? So what? Yeah, you had me go and do your job. You told me to go in the server room. That's your job to go in the server room. I said, well, you were there Saturday night doing taxes. I assumed you needed that server up and running as soon as possible. I was on the other side of town. That got you back up and running in minutes. Otherwise, you'd have waited 90 minutes for me to get there. Well, I had other work to do. Well, you didn't tell me that. You implied that this server needed, you called me Saturday night for a reason. You didn't wait till Monday. It's implied this needs to be back up and running. Well, it could have waited 90 minutes. So you want me to get in the car, drive for 90 minutes to push a button for you? Well, that's what we pay you for. I go, no, it isn't. What did you say? They said, when our email went down, why didn't you tell us? I said, okay, so your administrative assistant called me and said, is our email down? And we checked it and I verified, yeah, I'm going to need to look into it. Why do you guys not talk to each other? Do you expect me to call every single one of you in the office to tell you your email's down because you sit right next to each other and you don't talk to each other? Who do you think you are to talk to us that way? I'm just asking you a question. How can I do that and fix your problem? And do you know what the problem was? What? You guys didn't pay the bill. That's what happened. I didn't set that email up. That's your previous tech guy. I don't know anything about it. So now I have to do all this digging. It takes me 3 days to figure out. You've been getting notices. Somebody here has been getting notices and they're going unpaid. It took me 3 days and you're mad at me? You're welcome. And they're beside themselves. How can he be talking to us like this? I said, do you remember last year when you said I was like Superman and I was your hero? Remember that? You guys said you loved me? Yeah. I go, what changed? She goes, this is your fault. I go, what's mine? She goes, you set higher expectations for us. It's so absurd. And then I had another client say, what do you do for us? We've had you for 10 years. I go, and in the 10 years, I've never raised your rate. You're paying me the same today as you were paying 10 years ago. That's how I reward your loyalty. Yeah, but what do you do? And I said, well, I'm keeping your machines maintained. I'm answering support calls from your employees. Have you had any downtime in the last 10 years as a result of a system here being down? No. Have you had any data loss? No. So for 10 years, you've had no data loss. Even though there's been data loss, you don't know about it because we recovered it over the phone in minutes. Yeah, but we don't see you here. I go, you don't have to see me here. I do most of the work remotely. I don't have to come here anymore. And he goes, well, what would happen if we stopped using you? I said, well, I mean, what would happen if you stopped changing the oil in your car? You have a pretty nice car. You take it to the dealer. They take it in the back. You assume they're working on it, but you don't see them work on it. There's nothing wrong with the car. A little while later, they give the car back to you. They supposedly change the oil. It runs exactly the same way as it ran when you brought it in. And then you pay money for that. So what if you just stopped doing that? What would happen? Well, eventually something's going to happen. Is it going to take 6 months? Is it going to take 6 years? I really don't know. And they said, well, we think we're going to try other options. Okay. 5 years later, they call me and ask me if I'll come back. They've been through 5 technicians in 5 years, each one doing something differently. Nobody knows what's going on. They were told their NAS was bad and they had to buy a new one. Then the next tech said that NAS was bad and put them in Azure. And they were spending twice the amount of money they were paying me per month just for the bill for Azure. And their phones weren't working and their emails stopped working. That's what it took for them to say, we really don't want to go back to Carey, right? We don't want to come back to this guy, but we can't find anybody else to do what he did. So the boss asked somebody else, would you call him for me? And I like the employee. The employee was never the problem. And he goes, hey, listen, boy, I'll tell you what, are we saving money over here with the boss's decision? Would you consider coming back? And I said, because it was this guy, I said, yeah, I'll come back. But at today's rates, not at the rates you were locked into before. Well, there was nothing wrong with the 2 Synology NASs. They were covered in cobwebs, but they were full. They had set automatic backups from one to the other, or they were keeping apparently 32 copies of every file.
So they were doing snapshots?
Versioning of some sort to Synology's drive. And Synology drive is really tricky. I can't quite wrap my head around how that works, because if you look at the Synology drive, it doesn't show all the space is taken. It should have a lot of space left over, but it doesn't, and the Synology drive is hidden. So I have to delete the Synology drive, and all of a sudden all the space opens up and the NAS works fine.
Yeah, there's deduplication and stuff like that, but it's usually under snapshot replication or hyper backup, depending on which one they're doing. Those are the 2.
I never used it before. I understand what it's for, but why it said versions 32 copies, like 3 or 2, I'd understand. 32 of potentially over 1 million files, and each one would be up to 32 versions. Fill up the space, and the tech didn't know NASs, or didn't understand it, and so he had to buy a new one, put new drives in it, and it worked for a while until it also got filled with versioning. Said, well, they're both bad, so we're just going to put you on the 3rd or 4th tech, so we'll put you on the cloud. Then they called me and said everything's really, really slow. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with these NASs. They just needed maintenance, right? But how do you explain to a customer what you're doing when they don't see the problem? You avoided the problem. How do you, oh yeah, because of you, we didn't get a virus. Sure. Well, I mean, if let's say I do something simple, and I don't know if you do this, but let's say you change their DNS to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Quad 9.
Yep, Quad 9s, yeah.
Okay. Free service. It takes a few minutes. Log into the router, adjust it, and now they're protected from bad websites that could have infected them. But because they've got Quad 9, because I put it in and they don't know anything about it, they never got those infections because those websites weren't allowed to load. But they don't know that's because of me. And if I tell them it's because of me, they go, okay, sure it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm so stuck with this. It's like, the reason you're not having any of these problems is because I'm maintaining it. Well, we don't see you, so we don't think you're doing anything. And I'm like, I've been working for you for 10 years and you think I'm a thief? Like, that hurts more than losing their business. You think after 10 years, I have been ripping you off. That's offensive. Like, what evidence do you have? Well, we don't see you. You don't need to see. And then shortly after they went separate ways, we went separate ways. The pandemic had hit, and they sure as hell learned what remote access was. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Then they understood it. But holy cow! And their email problem, they had gotten an infection that was sending out emails, and they were trying to reach somebody there. Microsoft was, or GoDaddy, through a hosted exchange, and they couldn't get anybody. So they shut their email down until somebody calls. So I called and said, you know, their email's not working. I can send them emails, but nothing comes in. It just sits there. And they said, oh, we have to reach out to Microsoft. I go, well, we didn't order this from Microsoft. We ordered this from GoDaddy. GoDaddy said, yeah, but we can't control that. That's on Microsoft's thing. We'll open a trouble ticket to Microsoft, and then we'll get back to you. Well, the business is down. Like, get back to me today. No, maybe within the next 2 weeks. No, the business is down. This is not a consumer email. This is a. So I started thinking about it, and I said, well, if the emails are going in, where are they going? So just for fun, to get a solution to my customer right now, I decided to create a test email under another account, and then under each account in the administration section of that email server on GoDaddy, set forwarding rules to forward all incoming mail to this other address. Just take it all from now on, anything going, and it worked. And the owner of the business was like, how did you think of that? Do you know how many technicians we've talked to? No one ever thought to do that. I go, I don't know. This is pretty basic for me. I'm not saying I'm a genius. It just seemed like a pretty basic, simple thing to do. And when I talked to the folks at GoDaddy, they didn't recommend it either. So I can't explain it. There's nothing special about that. It's a pretty basic thing to test. And thank goodness I did it, because it was 2 weeks before their email got freed up. And no sooner than that happened, there's construction happening across the street. And one of those bulldozer, what are they called?
The backhoe?
Yeah, something like that. Digging down into the dirt, cut the fiber optic line from the ISP. So then they just went down completely. And I guess they ended up, you know, again, phones weren't working. Email wasn't working. They couldn't remote in. And as a result of that, my understanding is they now have a backup Starlink ISP for such a scenario. But they couldn't catch a break. It was like, no sooner than I'd fix one thing, it was another thing, and they started to pile up.
Yeah.
And then they ended up, I believe, having to shut the business down. I think the damage was so expensive, and the customers having no way to reach them. And the guy was getting close to retirement age anyway. The end result of all this was he sold off the business.
Yeah. There's a comment in the chat that when you started the conversation on, you know, a customer asking, what do you do for us? We never see you. And Stephen Burt brought up the, you know, the cleaning crew. As, you know, you don't see them, but yet stuff is clean when you come in. I've actually used that in combination with, you know, so the cleaning crew, the alarm company, the insurance company. These are all things that you pay for on a monthly or annual basis that you don't see. And for the most part, you don't see any benefit from insurance unless something happens, and then you call and want them to cover the claim or whatever. And a lot of what we do is in those types of categories. The stuff that we're doing in the background is all, you know, we call it left of boom. You know, we're doing all this stuff so that there is no boom. But, you know, if something happens, you want us to be there at right of boom to get everything back up and running as fast, as quickly as possible. In that, what's that company? There's that ServPro, or one of those companies where if you have something happen to your house, they talk about, you know, we make it look as if the event never happened. The short version is, you know, that that's not true. They can put every wall back in place. They can redo the floors. We can do all that, but they can't replace you missing pictures and things damaged by a flood or fire and stuff like that. But what we can do in a lot of cases, if we set up things properly, that we're monitoring and we're backing up and we're putting together a, you know, disaster recovery plan, if something happens, all that stuff that you've been paying for over the previous months and years is building up to this moment that if something happens, we can recover for you as much as possible. And, you know, insurance is probably the best way that people have understood that is, you know, you're paying me to be there when that happens.
But don't you deal, it can't just be me. Nothing's happened. So what do you do?
So,
or everything's breaking. So why are we paying you?
So there's two ways to look at that. One, I can send you all the reports that we have on stuff that's happening in the dashboard, all the, you know, the nightly backups that show passed or failed. We can send you the RMM management that gives a monthly executive report that'll talk about all of the items in management, the uptime, if there were any viruses or malware blocked, detected, quarantined. We don't do a ticketing system, but of course, most of the larger companies are going to talk about we have a ticketing system, and we'll send you a report of everything that has happened in your office. Every time somebody's called into support, every time that we've remoted in because we noticed something and we fixed it without you noticing, all of that stuff can be cataloged in either an RMM system or a PSA or a ticketing system. And you just create the reports to send it to them. And then at that point, listen, if you want to read the reports, you'll see everything. You don't want to read the reports.
So here's the problem with the reports. Customer says, what the heck is this? Do you have this in English? I don't know what this is. I don't know. You're saying this something is something. None of this is all gibberish. All I know, you made all this up.
Here's the answer to that. Here's the answer to that. If you want to understand it, you go and get yourself your IT degree, which is
then they wouldn't need you, right?
Well, then no, you wouldn't need me, but you would have spent those 3 to 4 years learning everything to do it yourself. But then if that's the case, would you be running your business right now the same way you're running it?
Have you encountered this, what I'm describing?
I have to a degree, not to the level that you have, but I have customers that, listen, since I'm in a boutique situation, for the most part, it's just me. I do have subcontractors. My wife works with me in the business, so there's usually 2 of us here most days. I've got a local tech here that if I need assistance, whether it's a project that I need, you know, double hands to move, or if I can't be available, I can call him, and if he's available, we can get there. I've got techs in other cities that can get to my customers' branch offices and take care of stuff. But for the most part, I have customers that'll look at me and say, well, it's just you. We want a bigger company. And they'll price check me. And that's basically the way I describe it, is they'll go look at other companies to say, can you support us? And most of the companies that do what I do, that are fully managed service providers, usually are going to be more than me.
They've got more overhead.
And well, yep, obviously. Or they're larger and they will just simply, you know, use that as an elitist status. Well, we're bigger, so we should, you know, you should pay more. And customers sometimes have the expectation as, well, if you're smaller and don't have that overhead, you should be cheaper. Because there are times where I have been higher than a larger company and they want to ask me why you don't. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing more than what they would do for you. They would treat you as a number and you would have to go through their ticketing system. If you call their office, nobody's going to pick up. Or if they do have somebody pick up, all they're going to do is say, can you submit a ticket, please? Can you send an email? Or I'll create the ticket for you. And then you have to wait for the technician to call you back. And you're under some sort of SLA, which means that certain scenarios will get a 4-hour response. Other scenarios will get a 24-hour response. And that's determined by the company, not you. Then they're a lot more stringent on what they will and will not support. They're worse than I am when they will.
Or a la carte, would you say? They're going to nickel and dime a la carte, and you're just taking care of business.
Yep, and all of that
And
stuff.
and then you appear more expensive because batteries are included,
Yes.
right? And that would be the best way I could explain this.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories for marketing is a guy who runs a salon. He's a barbershop. And one of these, chain barbershops opens right next door to him. And they say, haircut's $5. And this guy's like, I can't charge $5 for a haircut. Like if I matched their price, I wouldn't make enough money to pay the bills. I don't know what I'm going to do. He's freaking out. And he reaches out to his marketing guy and he goes, man, let me tell you what just happened. He explains it. And the marketing guy laughs. He goes, I don't know what the problem is. He goes, what do you mean you don't know what the problem is? How am I going to compete with that? He goes, you don't. You put a big sign up that says, we fix $5 haircuts. I love it. So in that case where people are price shopping, and this works, of course, with computers, you want to buy the cheapest computer you can buy? Go for it. But do you think that's equivalent to, let's say, a machine that's priced a little higher, that's equipped a little better with a reputable company that does answer their emails and phones and has a warranty where you don't have to ship the thing outside of the country? Do you want to go to a garage sale and buy your computer there? Or do you want to buy it from a reputable seller who stands behind their product? And do you think these things are equal and therefore of equal value? That's the best way I try to present it is that you can pay less. No one's arguing that. You're welcome to it. Like I said, if you want to go buy your own router and pay me to install it, that's fine. But if you have any problems with it, I'm going to charge you, right? If I provide it, it's my responsibility to warranty it and address any issues. But if you want to save $20, do it. And we'll see which one costs you more.
Yeah. The analogy that I've started to use lately is the restaurant industry. And, there used to be a huge distinction between fast food and sit down. And it used to be that, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, you paid for speed and convenience and being able to go through the drive-through. Now, yes, you could go in to a McDonald's or Burger King and Wendy's. You could buy the food and sit down and enjoy your food after you buy it. But you were certainly not getting the experience or the atmosphere of a larger chain restaurant where the experience was part of the deal. You weren't going to be waited on and have them bring you drinks and nice menus and what would you like and how would you like the chef to prepare that and all of those things. People are now complaining about the price of burgers at McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's because they've had to significantly raise prices. And then you've got people that are going into these nice restaurants and complaining that their service sucks. And if they wanted to, pay $20 for a hamburger, they'll just go to McDonald's. And the lines are getting blurred, just like they're getting blurred for us in tech. They want, they think that because the kid down the street, their neighbor's, kid can fix something, well, then that means that they can replace us. So it's fun.
Well, my answer to that now is I encourage them. If they say to me, well, why should I pay you when I can get this other guy to do it? I say, hey, if that other guy is faster than me, cheaper than me, and, does the job right the first time the way I do it, can you give me his number? Because I've never found that guy and I could hire him. I'd love to use that guy, but you know what? Go explore that. And if you change your mind, just call me back. I'm always here. Nothing personal. I understand. Who doesn't want to save money? I'm not going to tell you you're not going to be happy with that guy. You're not going to find anybody cheaper, faster, or better than me. I used to. But then I'm laying down a challenge and they'll dig their heels in. And I don't want them to dig their heels in just to prove me wrong. So I do the opposite. I go, you know what? You're absolutely right. You should look into that. If you find out that it isn't what it appears to be, I'm trying to leave the door open and let them know that I'm not going to resent them for it. Because my thought is, if you love something and you set it free and it comes back, it's yours to keep kind of thing. If that customer doubts me, then they realize the value, they'll likely not doubt me again. So then everything should be good from that point forward.
True.
In theory.
True. In theory.
Doesn't always work that way. But that's the mentality. Like, it's what I tell myself so I can sleep at night. Is like, okay, once they burn themselves, they're gonna stop touching the hot stove, right? Well, most of the time.
I think so. This is going to sound crass, but it's kind of going to the question that was earlier. I don't know if you wanted to address it, but it's kind of like the saying that if you're in a relationship and one side cheats, and you're going to reconcile and expect them to never cheat again. Well, people always say, well, once a cheater, always a cheater. And that, I would probably describe about half the people that do that in IT. If they're looking for the cheapest price, they're always going to look for the cheapest price. And they're only going to come back if that cheaper price isn't fixing them. They'll pay more just to get that problem fixed, but then they're going to revert right back to, at some point, wanting to go cheaper.
I've had that experience.
So I will usually say, depending on the reasons that you left the first time, if you come back, here are the new set of expectations. You actually will say the new rate. And if you leave a second time, that's it. There will be no third.
Well, you can imagine I'm pretty convinced that my system is logical and undeniably, makes sense. And customer did leave because the new secretary that he had hired, who I had never met, said that he should fire me and hire her husband, who does computers. And that's what they did. Someone threw me under the bus. I've never even met them. But when he screwed everything up after about 3 years, they asked me if I'd come back. And so I did. And I said, these are today's rates, but as long as you stay with me, I'll never raise your rate. 10 years later, his son is telling him, why don't you move your business inside of my offices, and you can use my IT guy, even though their systems are completely separate. And then you don't have to pay for an internet connection. So now their files are potentially exposed, each company's files. And this is the guy I was telling you about. Why do we have you? Because his son, who I never met, said, Dad, why should you have a tech when we have a tech? Why should you paying rent for a building when we have a building? And I think the kid was thinking, this is my inheritance he's spending. And despite never having met me, threw me under the bus. So when it happened that time, I was in shock. I'm like, he never got a rate increase in 10 years. He acknowledged they never had any downtime. We've already been through this before. This is impossible. Like, my brain just couldn't process, what is this guy thinking? Like, the past didn't happen? And that's the company who 5 years later called me, and that's that story. I was the same guy. So I charged him full price the third go around. Full price, no breaks. If I spent 5 minutes on the phone, I'm billing him, because I learned if I don't get it from this guy now, I'm never going to get it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't deserve any loyalty. But I took the job in a very unusual way for me. I decided I wanted to recoup some lost income that he cost me. And I didn't earn back what I would have made in those 5 years, but I recouped about 20% of it, which was some level of satisfaction. I had to earn it, don't get me wrong. But, and of course, the end result was he ended up selling off the business anyway. So that ship has sailed. And the other customer, the one that I told you about that said, why are we paying you so we do your job? And it's your fault that you raised that guy also sold his business. So I've never fired a client. And I do feel a lot of empathy for people. And I think, well, now you've learned. But as your example, or what you're saying there about, cheaters get to be cheaters, that does sometimes happen. But sometimes people realize their mistake.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes somebody struggles with addiction. Could be smoking, could be alcohol, drugs. and they clean up, and sometimes they stay clean.
Yeah.
And I like to think in my little world of unicorns that the best of intentions of people, they realize they made a mistake. We're all allowed to make mistakes. You don't need to rub their nose in it. You don't need to cry over spilled milk. Let's just move on. So for them to repeat it again, and I know I'm partially responsible for putting myself in a place where I could be betrayed from somebody who's already betrayed me, but I just, oh, they're not going to do it. They wouldn't do it twice. And boy, does that suck. Let me tell you, when they do it the second time, I am so mad at myself. But until it happens, I don't want to punish them. I don't want to be so punitive as to say, well, you did this to me once, and I'm never going to allow it to happen again. Take your business elsewhere, because I'm turning down opportunity to make money. So which thing am I doing? Am I a justice warrior, or am I in business to service computers? So I try and take it as take the emotion out of it, take the betrayal out of it. Let's look at the data. He pays me. We've never fought over a bill. I've never really had to work that hard to collect payment unless it was the last payment. And then I made sure on the last bill that I charged him enough that he knew what it was going to cost to keep using me, right? I set the precedent. This is what it's going to be from now on. And then he ended up selling the business. So that's how I adapted to that scenario. But, these are two stories, by the way, two particular clients I mentioned. I've got many more clients, or I've had many more than that over the last 35 years that aren't story worthy. So it's an exception.
Yeah, I'm looking at Stephen's comment about employer had a client who switched to a much larger organization due to their need to integrate systems. So the closest I have had a situation like that happen where I had a client many years ago. They were a yacht interior design company, and I managed their servers and networks. They actually had 2 office locations. I had connected the 2 offices. This was back over the early days of DSL. That is how they were connected. But they actually had a database program that they wanted me to manage, and they wanted me to manage their website. And I said, I don't do that. And then they went to a company that could do all of that. So I have had that happen. But the other situation I've had, I had 2 clients in 2023 that got acquired by larger organizations, and they could not keep me on. One was actually a national organization, and they ended up ripping out all the equipment in that network. And then the other was a architectural firm that got bought by another local company. Their office was here. I moved them over. I helped their IT people do their stuff. Both situations, kind of like you, Steve, where both the customer and the IT folks said, wow, that was just fantastic. The way that you handled that, the transition was fantastic. The documentation was fantastic. Both customers wish that I still could support them, but it just isn't going to happen. And it'd be nice, but that's how it crumbles sometimes.
I'm curious, and since the last time you and I spoke, I was a guest on Marv's podcast. And again, thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk with a peer in the industry where we can share relatable stories, some of the frustrations. And, I don't want to come across like I don't like what I do. I love what I do. Sometimes though, you might have kids. You say, I love my kids, but sometimes, and I like to share those sometimes moments. They're much more interesting, I think, to share, but sometimes that may come across as me being negative. And it's negative about those particular situations. And if I said, well, everything was great and everything went well, I just don't think there's much interest. Okay, so what? Where's the story? In that vein, put you on the spot. Have you had any interesting or challenging technical or customer problems since the last we spoke that you'd want to share?
Challenging.
Yeah.
So
Even challenging technical issues.
So I do have one, but I'm still in the midst of solving it. So this is actually I can partially tell the story. Can't tell the whole story because I don't know how it ends. But it was a referral from another technician to have me come in and verify that their network was working properly. And I've got, for those that do not know, and I did not say it here, I have these here, but I use NetAlly handheld testers. And if you remember the old Fluke cable certifiers, this product was born out of Fluke. It moved out to a company called NetScout and then got acquired and named NetAlly. But these are tools that I can go out and verify network connectivity. I can do some testing, but that's the short answer with all that. They wanted me to bring these tools to this network and verify that there was no issues with the networking. They had 2 switches and they were running 2 live stream locations, and they were getting poor performance. I'll just leave it at that. And the bottom line is I went in and checked one of the switches. It's a managed switch. Everything's turned on. I can see it. Everything looks great. The other switch, even though it is a managed switch, it's not configured to show all of the management features. So when I put my tools on, I can't see anything. And we did try to turn on the management features. It has not worked. But bigger than that, there's a test that I run on my testers that's just basically a basic performance test. And it means that I will push through data on their network to make sure that the network can handle the data throughput. And for these switches, I should have been able to push 1 gig worth of data through the ports. So I set up the test. I'm running the test. I'm seeing drop packets. And all of a sudden, we start to hear people in the office say, hey, is something going on? We just got kicked out or we lost internet. So I knew that there was an issue there because we should be able to push through that much data. Now, we actually push through only 998 megs. We don't do a full gig, even though we can. And we can go higher than that, which we will on 10 gig ports at some point in time. But on switches, whether they're managed or not, if it's a true gigabit switch with the proper throughput, you should be able to saturate a port with 1 gig data and not have it affect any of the other ports. And in fact, with a layer 2/layer 3 switch, if it's full duplex, you should be able to do that both ways. So a gig out, a gig back. So in theory, these ports should actually be able to do 2 gigs simultaneously. That did not happen at this client location. So we are in the midst of trying to add the SFP modules, the fiber modules, so that we can utilize their 10 gig fiber ports, which again, on the one switch, the modules we put in came right up, worked. On the new switch, it is not recognizing any of the modules that we put in. And I have put in the exact manufacturer recommended model, as well as other modules that I use all the time that are lower end generic and should work in 80% of the switches out there. I put them in my NetAlly testers. I put them in my Ingenious switches. This was not an Ingenious switch. Again, I won't say the model because I haven't finished the project, and this is a customer that's not really mine, so I want to be mindful that I don't throw any names out there. But we are still trying to figure out if there is something going on with that switch. Because it's a new switch, the client has to contact the manufacturer to see about updating the firmware, seeing if it's a defective switch, if it has to be sent back. We are ordering a new switch just in case. but that's where we are with that. So that's probably the challenge, the biggest challenge out of the things that I've done. This has been within the last 3 weeks. The only other things that are going in, we have some law firms that are starting to look at implementing AI in their practice. So we're trying to figure out, one, what do they really need AI to do? And then second, is their network set up properly to use AI? Meaning, if they want AI to, for instance, analyze all the other, you know, production reduce request, or if they want to create a demand letter and they want to be able to just simply put in the client's name, the opposing client's name, and generate the letter, are we set up to do that? And is their data segregated to the point where, one, AI would have the access to read all of that, and two, is it protected? Because we can't use a public LLM because we don't want that information out there. And if it's private, then we've got to make it to where it's working inside the office, but not outside the office, and all of those types of things. So we're starting to have those types of discussions with some clients where we can't just use ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity because we can't give a public LLM access to customer private data. Some of it is HIPAA because these are insurance carriers that law firms work with it. Some of it is just obviously legal problems that they have to worry about. They can't have an open, ongoing case leaked out in a public LLM. So those are the fun things that we're dealing with right now.
On that switch problem, are the old switch and the replacement switch the same manufacturer?
They're the same manufacturer, but not the same model.
And did you recommend that, or did the customer decide, or did a technician decide that model should be the replacement model, or is it just they're calling in after that decision was made?
No, well, technically it wasn't a replacement model. They actually purchased the second switch on their own. So this is a client. They're not my client. This is.
Well, that's why I'm asking sort of generic questions regarding, just trying to understand that scenario better.
Yeah. So they purchased the switch to be a second switch originally for backup, but they grew so much that they actually had to start utilizing the second switch because they ran out of ports on the first switch. So they had been operating, and for the most part, it's working, except for these new things that they're now doing, where every so often it's not working, and trying to figure out, okay, when is it not working? Why is it not working? Are they doing too much? I can rule out it's not an internet bandwidth issue. But it's just until we can get full visibility into this one switch, I can't do much more.
Yeah. Those are good ones, though. I love stories like that. It's always like a whodunit mystery. You get to dig in there and find the culprit.
And the opportunity would be for me to just simply take that switch out, put one of my switches in, but they don't want any downtime.
You can't do that on a weekend, or you won't.
They are literally running 24/7.
Okay. So trying to change a flat tire on a car that won't pull over.
Correct. Yep.
Get it up on two wheels and lean out the passenger window.
So, but we tell them, I said, look, you're going to have some downtime. Even if it's a firmware update, that switch is going to have to reboot during that update. And which is funny because I wonder, okay, how are they doing other types of updates if they're trying to get no downtime? There has to be downtime.
It's a good question. And furthermore, how long would it take for you to just plug in a switch? Your downtime's what, 90 seconds? 3 minutes? Just even if you just not install it, just let it hang, plug it in, move the cables, turn it on, boom. Are we seeing it? Could it be that quick? Or is there more to it than that? In other words, is it like a smart switch that has to be configured?
Yeah, but you can configure a lot of that ahead of time.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
A lot of that can be configured ahead of time. The biggest thing is going to be the moving of the cables. It's in a rack. So there are some cable lengths that, if you can't pull the old switch and put the new one in, So if you hang it off, then we've got to have all these long cables ready to go so that if we unplug from the live switch, switch them in.
Sliding the switch out of the rack is what, 4 screws?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're talking when I tell customers most of the time, look, you're going to expect 30 minutes of downtime. They're okay with it. They understand. They can work around it, or it's a weekend type of thing. This particular care, there's off hours where it's less impactful. So I do know that going in at 6 p.m. probably won't affect their business as much as 12 p.m. So that's what I was recommending is, look, I'll come in, late night or a weekend and do it. And, maybe we move, whatever department is up and running at that time. We just swap cables so that they're on the old live switch while we pull out the second switch. They're going to figure some stuff out and let me know.
All right. I love those stories, and your hands are a little tied there, but I always like to throw ideas out there, but it sounds like you've already, and not surprisingly, you're like, yeah, I already thought of that, Carey.
Well, but it's funny. I mean, these are all things that, coming from the outside in, it's always interesting to have, because even the I don't know what the exact position is, but there is a tech that works with them that, had the forefront to think, these are not cheap switches. Let's just say that. These are not, this is not a network that was just kind of put together half-ass type of thing. This is actually a very, I'm not going to say pristine, but it is a very nice network. If I were to walk into this, as a first contact prospect, I'd be okay with it. I'd be like, you know what? I can work with this. The problem gets to be is when I'm coming in to troubleshoot a problem and I'm asking the questions, well, this and that, and can we do this? And when you get to a point where you get stuck because you can't move any further, that hinders a lot of things. So there are a lot of questions that, yes, in terms of can we bring in another switch and hang it off? No, we don't want downtime. Okay, then what do you want me to do? And that's probably where a lot of times some people would just be like, well, if I can't do that, then I'm out. The only way, it's like telling your AC repair person that, you've got to come in and do maintenance, but you can't take the AC offline or whatever. I mean, there are certain things that you have to do, like a plumber. And I'll say this because we're going to have a plumber come to our house because we've got a valve that for some reason underneath the toilet, you can't turn the water off or on. I shouldn't say off or on. It was on. They changed the smart water plug out at the curb, but then all of our stuff in the house went berserk. So we've been changing, aerators and toilet inners, but behind the toilet, you're supposed to be able to turn the water all the way off. Well, turning it all the way left didn't turn it off. And now turning it back right doesn't put a lot of water pressure in the toilet. So at some point, somebody's going to have to come out and fix that. I know they're going to have to turn off water to the house to fix that. That's the way I see this network is in order to fix certain things, we're going to have to shut down certain things.
You know what? I as a teenager in the 1980s, had to learn how to do a lot of things ourselves. We couldn't afford to pay for a plumber. And it could be just a, hey, I don't want to do it thing. But usually, in my experience, I find most people who understand basic electronics understand basic plumbing. And things like what you're referring to as a quarter stop, it's a stop valve. You could easily do that yourself. And you probably have a gate valve where as you turn it, the little gate comes down and shuts the water off. And they're very old. And now we have ball valves where there's holes drilled on each side of the ball. And the valve, you only turn it a quarter turn. That's as far as it goes. And it's turning the ball. So when the holes line up, water flows through. And as you rotate the ball, as the holes become smaller and smaller until eventually it's off, they don't leak, they don't break. And now they have these things called shark bite, where you attach it and it bites into the pipe and you're done. No special tools. I think there is a tool that crimps it down and you're done. Like, that is the extent of it. But then sometimes you're like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
yeah,
but
these
not to
are the
lose
types of
the
things-
analogy.
Right.
You shut the water off though, regardless.
Right.
And that's a part of it. So when I've dealt with this, I had a customer that had and just to tell a relatable story, I'm not implying anything by this, but customer's got an old server. I said, look, we're keeping this thing alive. It's on life support. You've had it a long time. You really need to buy a new one. You don't have to do it today, but if you wait until it dies, your whole business goes down. Right now, you can shop around for the best price. We can schedule when your downtime is going to be, or you can wait, and when it fails, pay emergency rates. Whatever the price for the replacement server is, you won't have the ability to shop around. And all of your employees that are on the clock, they still get paid. So which way you want to go? Do you want to be proactive or do you want to be reactive? And that's what I would take to the customer and just very basically state, I recommend proactive, but it's your business. How would you like me to proceed?
Yep. Yep.
And this customer, by the way, the same people, I got so many stories of this one customer. Here's a few others. After we went separate ways and they hired somebody else, 2 weeks later, the owner calls me and he goes, you wouldn't believe what just happened. And then what? He goes, the server died. The server I've been telling you to replace for 2 years? Yeah. He says, you know what I should have done? I said, what? He goes, I should have replaced it yesterday. And I laughed and I said, wait a minute, you do mean that as a joke, right? Like, I drive around without car insurance, but I got into a car accident today. You know what I should have done? Is I should have got car insurance yesterday. That's the dumbest thing I've ever. Surely you must be joking. And then one time they called me up and they said, we have some folks over here and they brought their laptops with them and they can't get on our network. And I said, well, it sounds like something on their laptops is preventing them. You know, maybe their company that issued the laptops isn't allowing it. Oh no, they go to other places and they connect fine. So we need you over here to fix it. I go, well, does your laptop go online? He goes, yeah. I go, there's nothing for me to fix. He goes, no, that can't be right. There's something wrong with our network. I go, but it's working for you. He goes, well, could you look at their laptops? I go, no, I can't look at their laptops. That's a whole different company. I can't take on the liability. Well, it turns out it was actually my fault, sort of. As a security measure, I set the router to only put out 50 IP addresses and forgot about it. There's no reason this small company needs more than 50 IP addresses. But then all the employees started bringing in these things called smartphones and they were getting charged for data. So they were connecting to the Wi-Fi and then the company next door said, can we connect to your Wi-Fi? And they ran out of IP addresses. And the reason his laptop was connecting was it was reserved, right? And the people that came in, there were guests, customers of theirs, couldn't get online. They ended up using one of those T-Mobile sort of hotspots. And they had taken, a small company with 12 employees, had consumed between the printers that they put on wire, because nobody was using the wireless, consumed it without telling me. And I was baffled. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. It's connecting, but it's not getting an IP address. But all these other computers are connecting and they are. And yeah, that was an interesting one. And then they bought a post office, the company next door that was that was on their Wi-Fi. They have one of those Pitney Bowes stamp machines. And they got a new one, but they never told me they were getting a new one. It's like, hello, does anybody remember Carey? I know you don't see me anymore. So they call me and they go, this won't get on our wireless. So they eventually got their own wireless, right? But they never used it. And I'm like, wireless works. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're a small office, maybe 4 employees, and I just put a Linksys router in there. Well, I said, you're going to have to call Pitney Bowes. I don't know what's going on. So the guy from Pitney Bowes comes out and he calls me and he goes, the problem is your router. I go, but the Wi-Fi works on the router. How is, like, I'm kind of like defiant. This doesn't make any sense. Explain it to me. He says, when you sign into your wireless, it brings up a portal. And from the portal, it establishes your login, and then it obtains the IP address. This Pitney Bowes postal machine only wants SSID and password. There's no way for your portal to. And I went, oh, of course. Of course. But when I put that Linksys router in, they didn't want the Wi-Fi enabled. So whether or not it had a portal or not didn't matter until the day it did, and I forgot about it. So there was a few mistakes I've made and have, won't soon forget.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's technically a mistake, because at the time you set it up,
it was right.
Those were the parameters with which it was set up. So,
and nobody said, hey, we're going to get a new postal machine.
Right.
Not that that would have made any difference, but I would have at least known, hey, they might be calling. But I would have had to gone down there and looked at it, because it's just got a little LCD screen. I'm not going to be able to remote it into the Pitney Bowes machine. I've never set one up before. I've never sold one, and they've never asked me for help with one. So
yeah. So here's
the
difference. Yeah. So here's the difference. No matter the size. So I don't do what you did in limiting the number of IP addresses on a network. I used to. I used to be at the point where I'm like, yeah, they've got 5 people. Why do I need to give them a whole DHCP range? But I've changed my thinking, because I do more network monitoring now than ever before. So 2 things. One, I just by default leave the range open. I do have reservations for things like servers, Wi-Fi access points, and stuff like that, where I assign. So they may only have maybe 199 ports of IPs available.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. But 2, I always set up Wi-Fi to be on a separate VLAN, just because I don't want people bringing in their phone and connecting it to the same network as the servers and desktops and stuff. And that's more of an advanced business setup that I would say. I'm not going to say every business needs to do that. I just choose to do that because that makes it the same for my customer, regardless of who they are. I know that every network is going to be set up this way.
To clarify, nobody on Wi-Fi had access to any computer or data. It was on the guest network only. Now, isn't the guest network a VLAN?
Depends. Most of the time, yes. But there are some scenarios where I have seen the guest VLAN still be assigned the same IP range as the LAN, which it shouldn't be that way. Your guest Wi-Fi should be on its separate deal. But also, I know people configure things separately, because people come in on the guest Wi-Fi, but they want to print to the copier. They can't, because it's on a different VLAN. So people will say, well, just give them the private the private Wi-Fi so they can print. And there's all of that stuff happens. The other thing that goes along with that is I put DOMOTS boxes in all of my client locations, whether it's a physical.
A portal what?
DOMOTS, DOMOTZ. Let me get you the, and it is a box that literally monitors the network for any physical thing that connects. Did we put links in your chat?
You should be able to. Is it in the StreamYard chat?
So I just threw it in there. So domots.com, DOMOTZ. And these are boxes, or you can install the Domots app on a Synology NAS. And it will monitor anything that connects or disconnects from the network. And I do this for the simple reason of, if somebody walks into a client of mine and plugs something in, I get an alert. And then I can call the client and say, hey, I just saw this pop up in your network. What's going on? And this helps me when copy people come in and want to put in a new copier, the Pitney Bowes postage machine. is a scenario where that would happen. Somebody coming in with a laptop in the conference room and wants to connect. These are all things that I tell people, your network needs to be protected, even if it's just somebody that pops in. And I need to know anything that pops onto your network. Now, most people are probably going to look at this and go, I don't really need that. But for business clients that want to have that security, this is fantastic. Now, there's other products out there that do this. There's AUVIK, which is a network monitoring in the cloud. Some RMM products will do this, where they will keep an inventory of things that pop on the network. There's a little bit of documentation that you can do. You can rename devices so that the device names show up in the network the way that you want it. You can get, what IP address it was assigned. You can get the MAC address of the device. You will know whether, is it a printer? Is it a network switch? Is it a phone? You can remote into those devices through Domots. It gives a reverse proxy so that if you don't have a VLAN set up, but you need to get access to that printer to, maybe change something in there, you can remote in to the web console of the printer. You can remote into the web console of the phones. Voice over IP is a big thing on my networks now. And I like to be able to remote in. If I've got to change or reboot a phone, I can do that. So
why not just remote into a PC on the local network and log into the printer from the local network?
So we can do that, but this box saves me from having to either find a workstation that's available, kick somebody off a workstation.
Okay.
I can just put this in the server room and it just monitors everything, and I don't have to log in anywhere to do it.
My ignorance is bliss. I set up Tailscale on a Synology, and I was upgrading Synology to DSM 7.4 by hand. The night it came out, like within 20 minutes, I started upgrading it. And I logged in via instant house call to, this is late at night, everybody's gone home, to their machine. From their machine, I logged into the Synology. From the Synology, I updated the DSM 7.4. And the whole time, I've got a mapped network drive through Tailscale to that Synology. Actually, this one was a QNAP. It works the same either way. And I thought, I'm an idiot. All I had to do was put the Tailscale IP address in my browser, and I never needed to go into the desktop remotely. I accomplished the same thing. I just kind of did it the hard way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I hear about like the guest network, now let's say, and this is my question, this is a sincere question. A guest network isolates everything. Okay. So what you wouldn't know if you were on the same IP address, if you're a guest, you wouldn't know that. Number two, what's the harm if they are? They're network isolated on that IP address, regardless if it's the same IP address. And from your, you're working with bigger equipment, bigger companies than I am. What am I missing? Like, who cares if it's the same IP address?
Okay, so the short answer is if the guest network is set up properly, it's on a separate VLAN, it is isolated, then yes, you don't have to worry about that stuff.
I've never seen a guest network defaulted in a router work any other way.
Well, you can change it. I mean, you can make the guest network not be a guest network. You can put it on, you can make a guest network connect to the local LAN as if it's a private network.
Wouldn't that defeat the whole point of having a guest network?
It does, but I've known people that do that. There are, for instance, Datto, Ruckus, those are the ones that I use, which used to be Open Mesh. Datto was Open Mesh. Linksys business access points. Just because it comes, pre-configured with private and Wi-Fi, you can rename those and do whatever you want with them, which again, most people don't, but there are techs that will go in and change everything because they don't want to see guest on the Wi-Fi. They may want it to say something else. And then they may want to say, well, we want the guest to be able to connect to this. Okay, so then we have to unisolate it and we have to put it on the same VLAN.
Well, there's the problem. They need to cloud print if they need to do that.
Correct. So there are things where that's happened. So yes, you're right. So putting the guest Wi-Fi should never infringe on the DHCP scope of the local area network. But again, I just get to the point where I open it all up. And then I have the domots. And again, a lot of this stuff, yes, there are other ways to do these things, but the domots box has so many things that are built in that just make it so much easier.
Sounds like it.
And my business clients understand that they're paying for this because of the features and ability that I'm providing that others won't. And to be able to call a customer, and here's a perfect example. A printer IP address goes offline, comes back online, but is a different MAC. I call the customer and I'm like, what's going on with the printer? Oh, well, we called a repair guy to come in and he brought the same model printer and hooked it up and hard coded the IP address. And I'm like, that's not how this works. And they're like, how did you know that? I'm like, that's what
the serial number changed, basically.
That's what you're paying me for, is to notice things like this. So can you get me, on the phone with the technician? And the technician was all, you saw what I did? I'm like, yeah, I saw what you did. And now unassign that private IP address. I will configure it in my server, because we reserve IP addresses, because I want to know if I make a change on the network, I can push out those changes without having to worry about which devices are hard coded or not. And then he's like, oh, that sounds cool. So those are the types of things. The other things I saw there were a bunch of questions that popped up on the domots. I'll just quickly go through some other stuff. You can assign what they call important devices, whether they're servers or key personnel workstations, so that if they go offline, you'll get alerted. Very handy for servers, especially if you don't have a full RMM product that will also alert you if a server goes down. You don't have to invest in something that does that constant ping to know if the server is up. The Domots box will do that by default, watching SNMP. If something gets restarted, it'll give you the history of when the device went down and came back up. You heard me talk about the MAC address that gets noted on there. The Domots also will monitor your remote connectivity, so that if your internet goes down, obviously everything goes down, but it will monitor, for instance, if Comcast goes down in the middle of the night and comes back up, you can at least report to your customer, hey, Comcast went down. Did that affect anything? If you have dual WAN connectivity, this will also help, because you may have failover set up automatically. And if you've got things tied to an IP address because you're not running SD-WAN, you'll know if the gateway WAN IP address changes, so you can monitor those types of things. Again, I mentioned the remote access, that if you want to get to the web portal of a device, you can also set up other alerts. There's things that you could set up if you want to monitor print levels in copiers and workstation printers, so that you can be alerted when toner levels get low and you can sell them the toner. You can set up those types of alerts so that when toner gets below 10%, hey, we're sending you another cartridge. Be ready for that. There's a ton of other stuff I'm thinking of.
Is this a hardware device, or is this simply software?
It can be both.
Okay.
It started out as a hardware device. It was just a physical box about the size of, let's say a little bit
small switch.
Yeah, it was super small. But you can also install the app. You can download it to a Windows device, or you can put it on a Synology NAS. I think they have Linux versions now as well. You can just install it and it'll do this for you.
Is that a subscription, or do you buy it?
It is a subscription. You buy the box. The box is a one-time cost, but the monitoring.
Do you have to have the box?
No, you don't have to have the box.
But there's a subscription either way.
There's a subscription either way.
Is it I mean, I don't know, off the top of your head.
Is it pricey?
Yeah.
It can be.
So depending on how many per seat.
Yeah. So what they do is there's two versions. There's what they call a collector plan, which means a collector is either the box or the software, and it's per location. So it can either be $35 per collector, and it doesn't matter the number of devices, but then you're limited with like how many alerts you get and how much
per $35 per what time period?
per month.
Per month. Ooh,
Yeah.
It's a little pricey.
Or it's $1.50 per device per month, which is more of the managed service provider module. And again, they do that for a couple of reasons. MSPs that like to do everything per device, that per device pricing, they can bake in to their price there. Others that just want to say, look, it's $35. Now you can get it at a discount when you sign up for their partner program. So you can, I don't know what the discount is, to be honest. I'm on a special discount because of the podcast. I'm paying nowhere near $35. In fact, my last price that I was billing customers was $23, if that gives you an idea of how much it's gone up.
And how long have you been using this? How much experience do you have with it?
I've probably been using Domotes before the pandemic.
And have you had any problems that that was the cause of the problem? I've had customers put in UPSs, the batteries go bad and cause the very problem that they put the UPS in for, right? The battery dies, the system starts shutting off randomly. And I'm like, man, you shouldn't have bought these UPS. Is there any of that where maybe the network goes down, or there's a scenario where something isn't working and it's because the Domots didn't get updated, or the software update created a problem?
I have had no issues with the Domots. I'm not going to say that hasn't been the case. You know, I'm sure somebody somewhere has. Most of the problems that I've heard is from people wanting the Domots to do much more than it's supposed to. Meaning, if you're trying to run this in an environment with 1,000 devices, it's probably not going to do what it does. Now, they do have a new box that they just came out with called the Domots Pro. I've ordered it. I don't receive it until tomorrow, and I'm going to see how much more capacity it provides. I don't think I need it. I mean, my largest customer, well, let me rephrase that. My largest location right now is 120 devices in one location. I've got clients with multiple offices, but I have a Domots box at each location. So that's what I do there.
So the box itself, what's the advantage of having it if it's optional?
So at the beginning, there were things that you can do with the box easier than with the software. And a lot of that had to do with if you wanted to monitor multiple VLANs, because right now the box would only monitor the VLAN that you connected to, but you can actually have it monitor multiple VLANs. For instance, I do have a customer where I do monitor the wired and wireless connectors on one VLAN. I monitor the phones on a separate VLAN, and I monitor the guest Wi-Fi on another VLAN. And then we actually have the rest of the building on a fourth VLAN, because we'll give them access to stuff, but we want them completely separate. But I do monitor every single device in that building. And it's a lot more robust with the box than the software. At least it was back when I started. That may have flipped because they've actually added a ton of stuff to the software. I have a webinar that I'm going to watch. I think it's on like the 17th or something. No, the 22nd. I don't know. It's coming up that I'm going to watch and see how much more they've put in here. They've added a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole section for AI agents that's in beta right now.
I was waiting. Yeah, that was coming.
They've added integrations, which I do use one of the integrations. So anything that shows up in Domots gets pushed into my IT glue for documentation.
My follow-ups are, I think I have 2 more questions about this.
Yeah. Okay.
You can log in remotely to things that have web interfaces, but not to the desktops.
If you set up RDP to those desktops, yes.
Okay. Fair
And
enough.
you don't need to open
I
firewall
never
ports.
used that, so that's why it didn't even occur to me. And
But
then
you don't need to open up firewall ports. So yeah, I can RDP into, so I use TrueGrid for remote access or people to get to their desktops.
never even heard of that either.
It's
You better not start another conversation.
Okay.
There's a lot of new information, but I'm interested in this Domots. I've never heard of it. I've always been able to solve my problems other ways, but I'm also not dealing with clients of that size. At the same time, though, I'm wondering if I may be working harder than I need to be, or if that really isn't for me. But my follow-up then is, what example can you give us recently where you have utilized that to solve a customer problem or prevent one because you caught it early with the Domots? Can you give us a real world example?
I mean,
He's on the spot. You had no problem. He didn't know this was coming.
I mean, there's stuff that happens on a regular basis. Like the biggest thing that I do on probably the most regular basis is if a workstation goes down or somebody shuts it off before they go home and then they realize, oh, I wanted to work remotely, but my computer's off. Domots is built in Wake on LAN. So as soon as I get alerted that something goes offline, if I know it's the owner's computer, I'm going to go in and all I do is hit a button. I can do it from my phone. If I'm out, I just go into the app, hit Wake on LAN, comes up a minute or 2 later, we're good to go. That's probably the thing I do the most with it.
Well, doesn't the remote software offer Wake on LAN that the customer's using? Or are they RDPing?
Which remote software?
Whatever remote software they're using to remote into the computer. In other words, if I'm using Instant House Call, if I'm using a KVM, there is an option to enable Wake on LAN.
So that one does. A lot of RMM products don't offer that. So there are a lot of products that don't do. So if somebody physically turns off a machine,
yeah,
a lot of times there isn't a way to Wake on LAN. And
well,
again,
I'm not talking about RMM products. I'm talking about remote products like I don't know, TeamViewer.
Yeah, but a lot of times those only do it if the computer's asleep, but not off. I'll have to go and look.
I thought it's a magic packet regardless. No? Maybe not.
No, a magic packet is for off. But there are network cards now. They do have those features built in the card, whether you can wake a computer, but that's only if it's sleep, but not off.
Interesting. Yeah. Hence wake. But it never changes to start on LAN either. It's always Wake on LAN, whether it's asleep or off. It's still called either way, Wake on LAN.
It's still called Wake, but and
I thought that was controlled in the BIOS, but now that I'm thinking about it, how would it send the magic packet without something on the receiving side on the network that's on?
Well, as long as the computer is set up for that, the computer. So Domots knows the IP address, it knows the MAC, and so it knows where to send it. So as long as the computer is configured for that, then it'll work.
Yeah, no, I see the failure in my logic there as I'm speaking it out loud, because if I'm using one of these little KVMs, the KVM has to be on for you to be able to tell the KVM to send the Wake on LAN to the connected computer. So if some remote software offered that, but the computer was off or in sleep, then the software is not running and therefore would not be able to respond to your request to it. It would have to be somewhere else, like part of the network switch or part of the network. So yeah, I'm a little slow sometimes, but I'm getting there. I understand better now. And when that customer remotes in, are they remoting in? Because they're not going to use RDP, the client. That's for you, right?
No, they were using RDP. My software utilizes the same RDP built into Windows that they do. It's not a team viewer or, instant house call or
it's just remote desktop protocol that comes with Windows Pro.
Correct.
That's all it is.
Yep. But but we're bypassing your firewall. We didn't have to open a port on a firewall and forward it to the machine. It's all reverse proxy.
Is that all encrypted?
Yes.
And how do you, is it just one user can connect at a time to a single desktop, a single source?
Yes, and you actually configure all of that. You configure who can connect to it. There's multi-factor authentication, so they have to authenticate before they even get to the list of their available computers. So all of that's built in with the 128-bit encryption, or is it 256 now? I forget.
So you're not having to buy remote access licenses for each machine then?
No.
Ah, so it pays for itself.
Oh, yes.
See, now, see, I'm getting it. I
Yeah,
appreciate your patience.
The Domots can be a cheap person's RMM.
You just mentioned my name, Cheap Person's RMM. All right. Wow. I had no idea this discussion was going this way. There's sometimes, and I love it. There's sometimes you're driving and you get lost and you find the most amazing places. And happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. And for me, I think a lot of times, like when we talk about the ingenious equipment, or we talk about some of the level of equipment you work with, it's very difficult for me to really understand the depth of that, because I don't see any purpose how I would, like, to me, I'm like, well, what good would that do me for my clients? It would do us, as far as I can tell, no good. We'd be spending money on stuff that doesn't benefit them. But on the other hand, when you mentioned this box, my initial reaction was, this must be for bigger companies. But as we started to dig deeper into it, I'm like, well, this could work for me too. I mean, in this case, it sort of rides that line between.
So here's where I think this can help you even more. So I came today thinking we were going to do a super deep dive into these ingenious products. I brought my tools thinking we're going to go in here and show you what we can see and all of that stuff, because one of the things that I think came up a while back when somebody asked me, they're like, well, why do we even need a managed switch? And I said, well, you may not, but I'm finding that more and more, no matter what size the company, even homes now, because technicians are doing their homes as if they're businesses. They are, running, even if they're running, their own Plex server or their own Docker stations, there are so many things connected in your house, even if it's all Wi-Fi, that you want to be able to know. There's all of these, enabled devices that we're getting, whether it's our smart TVs, the smart fridges. People are trying to do, for instance, I got a gadget buddy that they're talking about controlling their sprinklers with, smart enabled features. All of this stuff is running through your network. And there's so many things that you can monitor on a network with a managed switch. Now, most people are probably using the Ubiquity products, where the ecosystem does a lot of that stuff, but you still need the managed features to the point where, let's go back to the small business. If you've got 4 people working on workstations, you've got VoIP phones, and you need to be able to identify pathways and connectivity and stuff. If you have a managed switch, you can tell which port those devices are connected to. You don't have to drive over to find that out. If you've got a managed switch and remote access, you can log into either a workstation or server, then log into the switch. If you've got the Domots box that I've talked about, Domots will tell you which switch and which port that's connected to. If you've got a PoE phone that for some reason is flaking out, or you've got a Wi-Fi access point, with Domots, you can go in and power cycle those PoE devices because you have access to the managed features of the switch. These are things that I think that they used to be enterprise features only, but they're now getting to a point where any smart home user, any tech that's building a home lab, these are things that you're going to want. Now, the topic came up earlier. Well, why not just do your own open source stuff? Yeah, we could do that, but there are some of us that don't want to do that. I want to be able to have all those features. I just don't want to build it because I don't want to maintain it. I want somebody else to maintain it. Now, I still will want to get it at a lesser price, which is where Ubiquity comes in. You're not paying for licenses to do all of these things. In Genius, you're technically not paying for a management license unless you want to, but that's usually going to be if you're doing multiple businesses and you want to have the cloud features. You can have a web app for Ingenious at no price and be able to remote in and check out the switches, see the ports, see if there's drop packets, power cycle, do firmware updates, all of those things. All of those features are coming downstream to where even the smallest networks can utilize them. So that's where I think learning all of these things, what's out there and available, because at some point, again, enterprise is coming down to small business. Small business is coming down to the home user. We are going to be at a point at some time in the future, those pipes that are coming in from your ISP, whether it's Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, whatever ones are out there, what they want to do is they want to be able to see what's in your house on their network. I want to be able to do that before they do it, or I want to be able to block them by putting in my firewall, my managed stuff, and configuring it my way. I don't need Comcast seeing what's on my network. I don't need GE or Bosch or Frigidaire with their smart fridges being able to connect to my network and monitor whatever else is going on in the network. I want to manage and maintain all that. Ring cameras, right now, everybody's freaking out because they're realizing that the Ring network, your stuff's available to everybody else out there or the police because you put it on the Ring network. And you probably didn't read the fine line that says, hey, by agreeing to do this, you've made your stuff. That's the problem we're running into, where the world is getting more and more connected. We need to be able to be connected as well. So I don't know why I just went off on that rant.
With the flock cameras and everything else, but at the same time, look at how many crimes it's solving, and people behave better when they're on camera. Yeah. That's a fact. Would they just behave? So people that are really opposed to that, I think they're deviant. Like you're something you don't want people to know about you. And some people think it's self-important, but when it's business, when it's business, it's client data, it's medical data, then I'm on board with you. Then I'm like, you have a responsibility to protect your customers. You as an individual, I don't really care what you do. But when you are responsible for other individuals, if you're the hospital, if you're a lawyer, it is your responsibility to protect your customers. So things like VPNs and BitLocker, this is for businesses. This is not for home users. And those home users that end up shooting themselves in the foot with it, I just shake my head at them. I'm just like, you bought a forklift, but you don't need a forklift. You don't own a warehouse. It was never designed for you to go buy and take it to work every day. That's not what a forklift is for. So I see home users, particularly enthusiasts, that go way over the top and overkill. But on the other hand, there is a legitimate purpose these things exist, and that gets lost by people that think they're that important, or maybe they're just an enthusiast of the technology and they don't really have a justifiable reason. They just want to play with it. That's my opinion.
That does happen.
When it comes to the camera, I mean, you have to opt in on the Ring camera to share it. It doesn't happen by default. You have to physically opt into that. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's like, oh, come on. And then, I have a little difficult time with that, because once you do realize it, once you're made aware of your mistake, you can undo it. It's not like there's no, that's just education. And sure, there's other brands of cameras that don't do that. And if you're aware of that, when you're an informed consumer, then that's what you would purchase. But nobody really cares if you come or go in the house. Nobody cares. I mean, honestly, unless something happens.
Somebody will at some point, because data is the new gold. And being able to sell that data and monitor, hey, we see that you're not home 60% of the time. How about if we find a way to do blah, 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 whatever? I mean, our data is being sold more than ever, and it's coming from the places that we don't think it's coming from. And you mentioned the flock cameras. I tell you what, there's a part of me that loves the fact that law enforcement is able to use those, but there are some civil rights activists that are like, why should you be able to track me without me giving you permission? Because what could happen if maybe I don't want, my family or my business or somebody to know that I took the day off and went up to Orlando for a day of fun. But because of flock cameras, somebody can now be like, well, Marvin said he was.
They're going to hold you accountable and you don't like it. Is that what you're saying? Is that your argument? No, I'm not saying it's that clean cut. I can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I see it's like a hammer. I can use this hammer to build something and I can use this hammer to destroy it. So it's not about the device itself. It's how it's being used.
Right.
I would say the same is true with the data. I don't think there's a problem with data collection when its purpose is there to sell you something. I'm tired of getting all the junk mail for things I don't buy. I don't buy eyeliner. I don't need ads for it. But if it's saying, hey, there's a new mini PC and they know I like mini PCs, then the advertising's more effective and I might make that purchase. And if that wasn't working, they wouldn't be doing it.
No,
okay, so
they should not be able, for instance, you like mini PCs, you've purchased one from us in the past. Hey, we've got a new one. Would you be interested? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Don't sell my information to that eyeliner company. Don't sell my information to
who cares?
Whoever out there.
What harm does it do?
Well, because it clogs up my inbox.
True.
With stuff I don't need.
That's going to happen anyway. It's just whether or not,
and
I don't know. I see both sides. I'm not taking one side or the other. Yeah. I'm saying I see the pro side of it. And I also see, I don't see where one side outweighs the other one. They're both almost like a stalemate from the way I see it.
Well, we are at the point right now where it's 50-50. I mean, there's good, there's good, and there's bad. I watched a lady on the right to repair scenario and talking about this used to be about your right to repair something you bought and you own and being able to take it down to your repair person and have them fix it. And now it's turning into the manufacturers are losing money by you taking it to where you want. And so they're finding out a way to stop right to repair. Well, now it's also getting into, somebody mentioned that your car is tracking you. Yes, all of those computer-related devices in the car that they want to be able to manage and maintain. And the car is now becoming subscription-based. You want to know when your car needs repair. Well, sign up for this subscription and we'll alert you anytime your car needs to be repaired. Okay. At the same time, we're going to take all that information and sell it and do whatever we want with it. The thought was, and this is just somebody being, in my mind, conspiracy theorist to the nth degree, who's to stop at some point by saying, if you want all of these features on your car, you need to pay us a monthly fee or we'll turn them off.
Yeah, like BMW tried that with heated seats in England and that didn't work out well for them. Wendy's decided that, hey, maybe we'll turn on surge pricing for busy times. And now they're looking to close a lot of Wendy's. The backlash on that was like, you're not obligated to participate. You don't have to buy that car. You can go buy a different car. You could, as a consumer, make better choices and take responsibility for your choices, as long as you're educated. And when it comes to like right to repair, some of the stuff doesn't make any sense. Maybe I can give you the right to repair a disposable Bic lighter, but it'll cost you 3 times as much as a new Bic lighter. But I gave you the right. You want to spend $300 to fix a $100 device, and that's what the hell you want to die on. Makes no sense to me.
Yep.
And then you could say, well, they're just doing that to sell you more devices. Of course they are. Of course they are. Mercedes wants to introduce a Mercedes logo, the head of a screw, so you can't just use an ordinary screwdriver. I mean, that's blatant and flagrant, you know, telling the customer, stay the hell out of the car. But at the same time, you and I both know you can buy those bits for about $2 on eBay, or, you know, probably even Harbor Freight Tools. Anybody with a modicum of knowledge would be easily bypassing that. It's not rocket science.
Well, it happened with PCs when HP went to the hex screw, you know, and people freaked out.
Torque, did they go to the hex? So that,
the torque 10 or torque 8, whatever it was.
T5. I don't remember, but yeah, but they often had like a flat blade override on those too.
Most of them did. Some, not all of them.
But you know, electricians, when you put in a wall outlet, they have a special, it's like a cross with a square in the middle, but you don't have to use that. But if you're a real electrician, you'll use the right tools, and they're insulated tools, so you don't electrocute yourself.
Right.
I forget what that's called. Somebody in the chat might know it. But I was going to ask you, oh gosh darn it, we kind of went off onto the privacy thing, and we're getting out of time here. And I appreciate you spending this much time with me. I intended to wrap it up 40 minutes ago. It's the story of my life.
Wow.
But prior to bringing up, we were talking about the Ring cameras, and we were talking about the Domots, and it led me to something. And I'll tell you what, I need a little notepad. I need to start taking notes, because I'll remember it as soon as we ended this conversation. And I was hoping I could grab onto it real quick while we still had a few minutes left. But in the meantime, while I'm letting my brain Google myself, if anybody has any questions, or you've asked something and we've missed it here in the chat room, please do so now. And we'll take these last few minutes here and do our best to provide answers for you, for me or for Marv. Is it a posit drive screwdriver? It's called the one I'm talking about. See, now I'm going to have to see. We're still stuck on the screwdriver. The electricians. Come on, Gemini, don't fail me now. Do you use a lot of AI chatbots searching for things yourself?
So I just started paying for the Perpetuity Pro plan, and I use it more for the podcast than anything. I am starting to use it for business, where if I just want to research stuff, Have
you let it do like any coding for you?
I'm not doing any coding, because,
or like any scripting.
No, I'm a big proponent of, I want to support my vendors and the stack, so I'm letting them do all of the stuff that gives me access that they can provide through the AI. I don't want to be a coder, regardless of whether AI is helping me or not. I know a lot of techs are doing that. I'm not. I just don't see that. Now, I am figuring out ways to use it to help me better. And probably the biggest thing that I have figured out, and this is not earth-shattering at all, but I've connected it to my Outlook, so that at the beginning of every day, it goes back and looks at my email and my calendar to find anything that could be considered billable, that I can make sure I get into my QuickBooks so that I can send out an invoice and not miss anything. So I am having it do that, but that's not a huge thing, but that's the first thing that I've actually gotten to work on a consistent basis, outside of go out and find me news this week that is pertinent to MSPs, or go out and find any breaches or lawsuits that I can report on. Those are the other things I've done, and they're just glorified Google searches in my mind. I don't have my data in OneDrive or SharePoint, so I'm considering doing that so that I could start to do more with Perplexity. And then if I got another sponsor for the podcast, I would probably consider getting Claude and using the Claude cowork to start seeing if it can do some of my things on a more daily basis. But it's only going to be things that are repeated tasks for now. I'm not going to have it try to do something outrageous.
Have you ever had it make a YouTube thumbnail for you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me what used to cost money for Photoshop and the hours to learn it can be done in just a few seconds. And is oftentimes first shot gets it. I've been really impressed with, well, for a while I was using Grok and then I started getting disappointed in it. And then Copilot wants me to log into Microsoft account. So I'm not using that. So I've been using Gemini. And the other day there was a song on the radio and I said, gosh, that sounds just like another song. And I, for the life of me, couldn't remember it. So I'm like, okay, what genre is this? And I went into Google and I started typing it and I wasn't getting anywhere. I'm looking through YouTube, couldn't get anywhere. And I'm like, okay, this is like a Europop song that came out. I'm telling Gemini, I'm looking for a Europop song that came out in probably in the early 2000s. I can't remember the name. It's very synthy and poppy and dancey. It was never really popular here in the States. And every time I hear it, it reminds me of Burn Rubber by the Gap Band. Name some songs. And it came back and it started listing things. And I said, okay, and I told it, none of those. And it's like, well, give me a lyric. And I'm like, damn it. Every time I start to play it in my head, I switch over to the Gap Band Burn Rubber lyrics. Like my brain switches. And I'm like, okay, it's not it. And anyway, I said, well, I think that said, "You'll never get me" is in the lyrics. I wasn't quite right, but I was close. And it came up with a few other suggestions. And I said, no, it's not those. And it was later than that. It was pulling up suggestions from 1990. I said, no, it was like later after that. And then it came up with this song, Bulletproof by LaRue. And as soon as I saw it, that was it. And I just was never going to get there in my own head. Like I just kept, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't important. It was complete nonsense. And I'm the only one, I think, that hears the similarity between the two songs or something about it. And without Gemini, without the chatbot, I think I'd still be here mentally constipated, unsatisfied. What is that? So it's gotten me out of those type of situations. And I've even asked it to script a video for me. And it tells me where the camera should go. And of course, I modify it to the way that I would say it. But it takes out 90% of the work. And I'm like, wow, this is really useful. And a law firm that I have as a client, I asked them if they've been using any AI chatbots. And they said, oh, yeah, we've been using that for months now. Whenever we respond to our clients, we always type our response or we copy it and put it into whatever AI chatbot they're using and ask them to rewrite it professionally. And then we take that and we run it through again. And we take that, we run it through. You run it through 3 times? Like, oh, it looks so good. I'm like, yeah, but 3 times? They go, every email 3 times. Okay.
That sounds like a lot. I have done that on occasion, but I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? That's a lot of work when I could just write it and
run it through once.
I run it through once mainly, and I add a phrase where I say, review this for clarity and make it sound like me. And then that's it. And then I'll maybe, tweak it once or that, but I always ask it for clarity and what I'm saying clear enough. And that's usually on the longer emails when I'm trying to respond to a client, with steps to do something, or they ask a question and I want to explain it. I'll do that. But just to reply, no, I'm not going to spend that time.
I'm so quick. Like my thing is I want to get done quick. And sometimes people say it comes across as rude. So what I'll do is I put my quick reply in, and then I instantly go to Gemini before I hit send. I copy it, put it in Gemini and say, please rewrite this for me so it is more professional. And usually the way it writes it is perfect. It's more eloquent. It's more professional, way more. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. Anyway, copy it, paste it back in the email body and hit send. And it's so easy. Even when it comes to Amazon reviews, I'll say, write a review of this product for me. And I want you to mention how much I like the support and just how fast and what a great value it is, and add some levity. And here's the number of stars, here's the title of the review. And I take that and I paste it. And then I just go line by line and, I wouldn't say that, I would say this. So I'm changing it enough that it's still my review, but it's saying it in a way that's more eloquent than the way that I write, and adding a sense of humor that and what's scary to me is the more I use it, the more it knows about me. So when I say review this mini PC for me, it says, as a computer tech for over 35 years, I found, and I went, holy crap, I didn't tell it I was a computer. At some point I must have. At some point I must have said, and then the longer I talk to it, the more I use it, the more it knows about me, my sense of humor, the answers that it gives that I like versus I don't like. And it keeps getting better for my personal preferences. It's scary. It's scary, but it's cool. And I'm not just copying and pasting, but I am letting it do 80%, 90% of the work. And then when I go to say that I wrote it or basically imply that, I'm looking at every line. And most of the time it's exactly the way I would say it if I slowed down. And I would be funnier. I used to be funnier, but that kind of goes against being quick. So I read it and I go, okay, this is actually kind of funny. It kind of adds some levity, takes the seriousness out. And it's Control-C, Control-V, so it's quick. So I'm getting what I want fast, but I'm also giving what they expect, which is a level of professionalism that always should have been there. And over time, the busier I got, you get answers like yes or no for me.
Right.
Because I felt like if I wait to do this later, I'm going to forget. So just before I leave, let me just write yes. And sometimes people go, that's rude. I answered your question.
Yep.
But now I can say, somebody leaves a YouTube comment and I want to say, I answered that in the video already. Why are you asking me something? And I copy that into Gem and I go, how can I say this better? And it has some really nice way of saying, you can check here and click that. It's so much more patient than I am. And it's so much nicer. And I'm like, oh, that's a better response than what I was going to type. I don't see any questions. Let's see. Are you using?
I did see one early on that I wanted to address. It was more, I think when I was talking about the printer guy popping on the network and they asked, can't you just block the unknown MAC? I mean, yes, you can, but I have found, in my opinion, blocking MACs on a regular network is just too much work for me. I will do that on private Wi-Fi where we'll create an access list where we only want these people to be on this Wi-Fi and then everybody else has to be on the guest. When it comes to the local area network, you can set up DHCP to only accept, these MACs and stuff like that. I'll be honest, I find that much more cumbersome than I don't think it would be worth it. If I were working full time at a business and that was my only client, my only job, I might consider that because I would be there full time monitoring stuff, but I'm not, able to do that for the number of clients that I have. Obviously, the least amount of things that I have to worry about and somebody just plugging in a machine, it's not happening to the point where I'm freaking out or I have to go to a customer. Why in the world are all these machines popping up? Most of them, it's just something. I've got one location where that happens, and that's why we put them on a separate VLAN. So I don't have to worry about them. But the management VLAN for the clients, I still leave open. And if somebody pops in and puts something on, if I know that they're having a meeting and somebody's going to be in the conference room, I know not to worry about it. I just don't like blocking MACs. It's just a preference, I think.
I was always taught that was not a secure method because they're easily cloned. And we're talking about, folks, about Macs, not Apple Macs, media access control. It's basically, think of it as a serial number that every device on the network card is assigned by the manufacturer. And you can absolutely say, hey, this serial number is allowed and this serial number isn't. But you can also just hit the clone button, like on a router. You can say, clone my modem's MAC, and then your ISP doesn't know you're on your router. And that's the question I was going to bring up. It just occurred to me. Talking about what your ISP wants to know about you. that part of the discussion we had a little while ago,
Yeah.
I encountered something for the very first time I found quite disturbing. One of my clients in California has AT&T, has a fiber going into their business. And they had told me a few years ago, after they had an infection, that they wanted to lock the network down. And that also involved, they have a ingenious wireless and access point up in the ceiling that's 25 feet up in the air. I have no way to get to it. And they just want no Wi-Fi. All right. So they end up unplugging, they figure out which wire it is, which RJ45 cable it is going into the switch that's connected to the access point. They unplug it. Problem solved. Okay. Eventually they got a ladder and they unplugged it and they took it down and they put it in a box. So 2 years later, I get a call and says, how come I can't put my laptop on the Wi-Fi? I said, what Wi-Fi? They said, our Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi? Yeah, we have all these other computers on the Wi-Fi. Why isn't my laptop get on the Wi-Fi? You guys didn't want Wi-Fi. So I call the boss. What's going on? I don't know. As far as I can tell, none of my employees need Wi-Fi. Why would they have Wi-Fi? I'm doing this over the phone. I'm in Arizona. They're in California. Hold on. Let's talk to the person that runs the office. Talk to the main administrative assistant. I talk to the main administrator. I go, when did you guys get Wi-Fi? I don't know. We've had it for like 2 years. For 2 years. Okay. So what happens? Well, we can put on these devices, but then sometimes my laptop connects. Sometimes my laptop doesn't connect. I said, I talked to your boss. He said, there's no reason any of you need to connect to Wi-Fi. What am I missing? Well, he's kind of a hands-off boss. He's okay. He doesn't know. I said, well, what do you need Wi-Fi for? Help me out here. Well, sometimes we have clients come in and they want to bring in like their tax paperwork and such. And they bring their computers, their laptops, their phones, and they need to connect to the Wi-Fi to pull the data we're asking for. That makes sense. I gotcha. Okay. How many devices are on the Wi-Fi now? 10. And your laptop would then be number 11? Yeah. Did you guys get like one of those little T-Mobile sort of hotspots? No. Do you know what you have? No. But you don't have that. Yes. How do you know you don't have that? Because what you're describing sounds exactly like that. We don't have that. So they have you're going to love this, Marv. Whoever they hired before me put in something. They put in a Netgear smart switch that nobody knows how to log into. And we don't know how it's configured. So if I reset it so I can log into it, I won't know how to put it back the way it was. So I'm hands off. I don't touch it. They have a firebox. Literally, it's a red box that they have the password. I found the password for it. And it's supposed to have a subscription. It doesn't have it. And I go, why is this here? I say, I don't know. I think we needed it for our phones. Maybe we needed it for a credit card machine. We don't know. Okay, I'm not going to touch that. I don't know if it's doing anything. But now the workstations can't log into the AT&T modem because they're behind the smart switch in the firewall, and I can't get to the gateway. I said, why don't you call AT&T and ask them, is there a limit? So they call AT&T, and they call me back, and they said, yeah, the limit is 10. How can AT&T limit that? They want to charge you to add more? That doesn't make any sense. Is this what the world's come to now? They want you to pay them for.
Well, so here's what
but
I
that's
think.
not what it was. That's not what it was.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
But that's what I'm trying to figure this out over the phone with technology I've never seen before. And I say, okay, let me Google this. Does somebody have the AT&T app on your phone? Oh yeah, the person that does the accounting does. Okay, can you put me on the phone? I'm talking to 3 people now. It's like, okay, let me download. What's the app called? So I download the app on my phone. And I go, okay, let me see the Wi-Fi. Like I'm logged in with their account name and password on their AT&T app. And I want to look at the Wi-Fi network. And it said, I want permission to see your location. No. Well, then it says you can't come in here. And then I said, okay, look at my location. It says you're too far away. You have to be in the building within so many feet or I'm not letting you in. So back on the phone. Okay, do me a favor. And I'm going through the app with the person. Do you see this button? Yeah. You see this button? Yeah. You click here? Yeah. Do you see where it says guest network? Yeah. Do you see where it says number of connections 10? Yeah. Change that to any number you'd like. Can I put it to 50? Put it to 50. Without the app, and because that firewall's in place, I have no way to get into the configuration of that router. But my initial instinctive response was the way they were telling it, and because AT&T did not offer this information, I guess because they didn't have. Is there a limit of 10 on the guest? Yes, there is. That was the end of the conversation. Not, oh, by the way, you can install the app and you can change it that way. I am old school. I just want to log into the modem/router, but I can't because of that damn smart switch and that firebox. I can't get through them to the other side, and I'm hundreds of miles away. But I thought maybe this was what was going on, and it turns out it was just in my imagination.
Okay, but that is starting to happen.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
Where
But I
things
thought
cannot be
when I
configured
first
without an app.
when I first heard of it, first of all, to have to use the app to use it is preposterous.
It is.
But on the other hand, the fact that it's behind a firewall, I can't get to the other side of. Unless I was in the building, I can't do it remotely. There's no way in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they kind of screwed themselves. The previous guy set them up in such a way that he protected them from themselves. So it's secure. I tell you that, it's secure. But the idea that AT&T support didn't offer additional information, if you'd like to increase that number, here's how you do it. They didn't offer it. So they got off the phone thinking that's the limit. So then I was left to conclude, based on this information, they're charging for the number of guests. That's what that was implied, but that wasn't what it really was.
No,
but you know
right.
it's coming.
It is coming, and that's how they're building a lot of the same way that, you know, firewalls used to be rated for X number of users. You know, this box will only handle, 5 to 25 users. If you want to do more than that, you need to upgrade to the new box. Well, that's all going to be subscription based, and it's going to be based on, it's probably going to be tied to consumption at some point. Where right now with the cell plans, they call it unlimited, but if you go above, a gig, you will be throttled.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that happening with ISPs at some point as well. And they're going to give you plans based on usage, based on the number of users. Oh, you have 50 users? Well, we expect you to use this much data, so this is what we're going to charge you. If you go over, there will either be a surcharge or you'll be throttled. So that gig connection up and down that you get might be throttled back to 200.
So here we have Cox Communications. And they said you get a 1.25 terabyte total bandwidth data cap per month. I download a lot of stuff. After that, any 10 gigs you go above that, we're going to charge you $10 for every 10 gigs. I'm like, ooh, that's expensive. Or you can pay an additional $50 for unlimited. And I'll pay the additional $50. And, every month I don't go over 1.25 terabytes, but I kind of forget. So it's like that gym membership I'm paying for, that extra $50 a month. But I don't have to worry about it. But I said, here's what I don't understand. What is the data cap if I have the slowest internet service you offer? It's the same. So you want me to pay more for faster service so I can hit the data cap sooner? They're like, what? I go, how long would it take me to hit 1.25 terabytes at 100 megabits per second at your lowest tier? I don't know. Well, okay, let's just say it takes a week. If a gigabit internet connection is 10 times faster, then I should be able to hit the same download of 1.25 terabytes 10 times faster, meaning I can hit that cap in less time, and you want me to pay more so I can hit my cap sooner. Am I understanding this correctly? And they're like, well, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, well, if I'm paying more for higher bandwidth, why aren't you raising the cap? That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm paying extra, but I'm not getting any more. I'm just getting it faster. I can
Right.
consume it faster now, and I'm paying for that. Are you high? Well, I don't make the rules, sir. Oh, fair enough. But I'm like, is this just me? Or am I, by paying for faster internet, only going to likely exceed my cap? Whereas before, it could have taken me weeks to hit that cap. I can now do it in a day and a half, and I'm paying extra for that privilege. All I'm saying is, if you're gonna raise my speed, raise my cap. No, that's not how it works. Here we are. So this isn't going to get better. You're absolutely right. They're going to find a way, another nickel, another dime. And then we have to find ways, if this bothers us, to work around it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to volunteer my money and my time. I can choose to go take my business somewhere else. Maybe I decide I'll go to Starlink. Maybe I'll start my own ISP. I don't know. We'll see how bad it gets. But I think it's important for consumers to remember they're not victims. During the pandemic, I saw a short video where a guy said, I just went into Target for paper towels. Look at my receipt. It's $21 for paper towels. Hey, the guy's got Bounty, the big brand name paper towel. Nobody said you have to buy this. And then he picked it up, took it to the cashier, paid the money, and then complained about his decision-making like it's Target's fault. I'm like, what's going on in the world? Why did you buy it? Why did you buy the name brand? Why did you pay for it? And then come out and complain about how much you paid for it instead of leaving. That was the last one. It's the only one you get. Well, then you should be saying thank you. So I just different values, I think, in how I was raised, but it's almost like they talk like they had to. They price gouged me when they had full control of it and made that decision the entire time. Target didn't invite them in and say, you should come get this paper towels. You should pay more for it. And it was all went on in this guy's head. And then he was so angry about it, he had to make a TikTok video, complain.
Well, that is the most common TikTok video now, right? It's complaining about service after the fact.
But they could have just gone somewhere else.
Yeah, true.
I don't like Walmart checks my receipt. Well, stop shopping there.
Yeah, but
if you don't like that, why do you go there? So
all my followers will need to see what I did.
Your followers will,
That's what the TikTok people say. Well, my followers, what am I going to, what content am I going to give my followers if I don't complain about stuff?
Well, I should be rich. I complain about stuff all the time. But a lot of what I'm complaining about is, at least from my perspective, are not from decisions I've made. They're from circumstances
that you can't control,
that I have voluntarily taken on. Right. So I'm like, oh, I can't believe, this guy has these two NASs I was complaining about later, and the techs don't know what the hell they're doing. And I got to clean up everybody's mess. I'm getting paid for it. And I could quit if I don't like it. It's like somebody, they apply for a job, they get the job, then they go, they don't pay a livable wage. We should start a union. Didn't you practically beg for that job? Didn't you supply a resume? Didn't you interview? And weren't you elated when they called you and said, when can you start? And now you've got the job, and now they don't pay a livable wage, which is like, well, livable to who? Do you own a mansion? Do you subscribe to every streaming service and buy video games and have all this wasted money, and so that you never have enough? Or are you truly, living within your means and you're not making enough? Then why did you apply for that job? You knew what they were going to pay you when you accepted it. And now after you've got it, now you're like, this should be illegal. You making your decision should be illegal. Make better decisions. My first job, just real quick, was at Jack in the Box. And they really treated you bad there. Time to lean, time to clean. I ain't paying you to stand around. $3.35 an hour. And I said to one of my coworkers one time, I said, why don't they treat us better? And he said, well, if they did, you'd probably work at Jack in the Box for the rest of your life. Oh, yeah. It's actually doing me a favor to make me want to do better, to get me out of there and do better. And I never thought of it that way until somebody pointed that out, because that gave me the motivation to do better, to go somewhere where the pay was better and they weren't so, you know, I don't pay you to stand around.
Right.
And so so there's a different perspective to say, well, that's actually doing me a favor. It's actually showing me that if I want to do better, the only one holding me back is me. And if I stay here and keep taking it, that's also on me. It's an interesting perspective. So I think we need more of that in the world, where people need to realize they can make better decisions. If they don't like where they are, you're the one who's going to change it, or it isn't going to change. Highly unlikely. Somebody's going to knock on my door and say, would you like $1 million? Sure. Still waiting for that knock on the door. It hasn't come yet. But if you manifest it into being and you put the work and the effort into it, there's nothing you can't achieve. And so many people that achieve things in the world are constantly told you can't do it. Thomas Edison cannot invent a light bulb until he does it, you know. And there's an interesting human psychology to those people who don't listen, that are a bit defiant. You can't make an electric car that you can't land a rocket straight up and down. You can't do that. Well, they were right until they weren't. And it takes somebody to challenge it and to shut those voices out. And when you finally have that perspective, you're unstoppable. There's nothing in the world you can't do. And it's nobody else's fault if you fail, and it's nobody else's success or reward if you succeed. And I think we need more of that in our society and in our culture, to support one another and to encourage one another. And in the meantime, you can't count on it, so you just have to do it yourself. That's the whole gist of it. And then if you're going to pay $17 for a roll of paper towels or a package of them, you understand you were okay with that deal. You may be sort of like, I can't believe how expensive this is, but at the same time, you still bought it.
Yep.
So anyway, do we have any other questions in there? Did I miss anything?
Oh, I didn't go back. Let's see. What if you have an unlimited plan, internet plan that's grandfathered? Well, you probably stay with that until it doesn't meet your needs anymore, because
it's like rent control in New York. You never leave that apartment.
Nope.
And business for you, have things been slowing down, or still pretty much the same?
I would say pretty much the same. I've got one large client that's the managing partner retired. So a bunch of other attorneys left. So that was a big drop for me, but it's not horrible. I mean, it didn't kill me or anything like that. It was kind of a nice little buffer to have that many clients. It was a co-managed client, so they're not, very demanding of my time. They've got a tech that can do stuff, but all of my other businesses stayed the same. I mentioned earlier, it's more about the AI now, trying to get through that. But everything else is really the same. I mean, after the big, converting everybody to Windows 11 was, pulling teeth to some degree. People didn't want to upgrade from Windows 10. So that was probably my biggest hurdle to finally get over and get everybody upgraded. But we're past that now. And podcast wise, so I just finished a big series with IT Nation's Pitch It. You don't need to know anything about that. It's more about vendors in the space. August, I'm going to be doing all service providers for the month of August. Normally, I have a blend of other techs, vendors, subject matter experts in the space. So if anybody is interested in my podcast during the month of August, it will be all service providers, whether they are managed service provider business owners, other techs in the space, system admins. So it's going to be all tech talk for the month of August.
And how do people tune in to your podcast?
So the easiest thing to do would be to go over to itbusinesspodcast.com. And on that page will be all of the podcast links, whether it's, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. If you follow podcasts, just pick the one that matches your podcatcher. You can also go to YouTube, and I've got a small YouTube channel there, IT Business Podcast. And that's usually the Wednesday live show. I do one live show a week. And also you can follow me on Facebook or the LinkedIn, and I do postings there whenever new episodes come out.
And if there's somebody that wants to hire you, is there a website they would go to set that up?
So you can either reach out to me through the podcast or go to my business site, which is mbsystems.net. M as in Mary, B as in boy, systems with an S.net. And even though I'm stationed here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I do work with customers and other service providers throughout the country.
Wonderful. Well, and we'll have all the links to things that we talked, your podcast and your website and the other items we mentioned in the show notes if they're not there already. And I can't thank you enough for, sort of informing us on the ingenious equipment. You're able to gauge it in a way that I can't. If we had a scenario where we could demonstrate it, that we're solving a problem that we couldn't solve with traditional consumer grade equipment, I would have loved to have demonstrated that. But without sort of that goal, I just was looking for an overview in general. But if we ever have an excuse to say, well, here's an example where a home, consumer-based thing isn't going to cut the mustard, and here's why, and we can demonstrate that problem and how ingenious or whatever the piece of equipment is, how it solves that, I would love to do a video like that at some point, just to plant a seed.
Well, have you used the Ubiquity equipment?
I have a customer that hired somebody that put in Ubiquity cameras, Ubiquity Dream Machine, and Ubiquity switch. And I tried to log into it and it wouldn't let me. I asked the person to give me administrator access and he did, but there's certain things I'm not allowed to do because only the owner can do it. And I said, well, give me the owner. And he said, well, there can't be two owners. It can only be one. And so I told the owner of the company, I go, look, I don't know this equipment. It's foreign to me. And what I played with it, it angered me. I wanted to reserve an IP address. And most routers that I work on, it happens instantly. On the Ubiquity, it took like 20 minutes before it actually kicked in and was effective. And I don't know why. And I'm like, what's the delay here? What is going on? And I want ownership. Well, for him to give up ownership, he's got to log into Ubiquity and he's got to relinquish it to me. He knows more about it than I do. I don't have any other customers that have it. So I said to the customer, why don't you just keep him on board for managing the Ubiquity and I'll do everything else. I said, otherwise, I'm happy to give it a shot. I mean, I'm happy to log in as an administrator and, he wants me on my phone and two-factor authentication. And I just want to be on my screen, and I'm like, I wouldn't have this problem with TP-Link or Netgear. And it's just, I'm angry about it. And the customer's like, we want you to do it. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't work like other routers. It's like a vendor lock system. And he goes, well, what would you do different? I go, well, I'd replace everything. I'd replace it with regular consumer equipment. He goes, well, why don't you do that? I go, because you probably spent $25,000 on this stuff. I'd have to tear it all out. He goes, you can't use the camera? Nope. You wouldn't use the DVR? Nope. Nope. I would put a Synology in there. I would put regular, much cheaper cameras. You're not that big of a company. Whoever sold this on you really sold you so much more than you really needed. And it's so complex. It's not the kind of stuff I work on, but I'll try. Long story short now, apparently, I've never been transferred ownership. I'm still an admin. And the last time I logged into it was about 2 years ago, but I still get emails. This app just updated on, this one's waiting to install. It just installed at 2:00 in the morning. I'm getting all the feeds from the Ubiquity.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do now.
So I think I'll probably look at that because Ubiquity is something I just got into myself over the last 2 years. There's a lot of things I love about it, a lot of things I don't love about it. And a lot of them are similar to what you're saying. There can only be one owner.
You can't just hit a reset switch in the back. That ain't going to work.
No, because once you set up the Ubiquiti account, the device is tied to that account.
And that's where I threw my hat in, and I go,
that's where Ubiquiti made the jump into being in the same space as the MSP area, where everything is locked by an account. Same with Datto and Kaseya, and I don't know if you know all these names, but
I know them, but I've never used them.
But all of these products are tied to an account. You can't just, flip it over. I mean, Datto, the backup products, even, you have to physically sign paperwork to transfer ownership with Datto products. So,
I mean, I understand the security requirement and where that would be reasonable.
For larger enterprise companies, for enterprise level companies.
When you have an IT department,
right?
When you have one guy, you don't want to give one guy that much control. What if he gets hit by a bus? Now what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't even want to go down that road.
Yeah,
because the equipment I use, I just get my little paper clip and stick it in the reset hole, and we just reset it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So I do have some control. I could log into that Ubiquiti right now.
Ingenious Ingenious might work for you in that scenario, because Ingenious has that. It's not tied to an account. You can set up other admins, and you can do outside of the cameras, because there's no camera ecosystem in Ingenious yet, but switches, gateways, access points, you can log into an Ingenious ecosystem and do that. Ubiquiti is just, they want to take over that mid-range integrators market where they can compete against the camera folks. They're going to compete against the alarm folks. They're going to get into door access. And basically they're going to want to be, if you've got a mid-sized business, 50 to 500 people, you want to have an office that is a Ubiquiti office. From the time you get to the front door, put your card up to the door reader.
It'd make it would be so much easier to maintain that at that scale. At my scale, we don't even use a smart switch, right? Everything's just let it be. They don't even have 2.5 gig. Everything's on 1 gig. And, if we want to go to 2.5 gig, they got to replace the NAS. They got to replace the switch. We got to, any older computers will have to have upgrades on the network. We're looking at thousands of dollars, and it ultimately may make a difference of 1 second in their data transfers, because there's not that many people using it at the same time. So then when you add this Ubiquiti equipment and all these Ubiquiti cameras, and not to mention Ubiquiti Wi-Fi points that they show you their coverage, the building's not that big. So you have a dead spot, put a mesh network in, you're done. Holy cow. Why did you spend so much money? Somebody really had him convinced that he needed this overkill. They ran networking for 10 gig. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
They're still running 1. You're not future-proofing. I think if you're future-proofing, you're going to go wireless.
Listen, I can tell you a lot of it just has to do with, once you get into the ecosystem, you just, the hammer analogy. I've got this hammer and it'll work for every network. And that's what you do.
It does the job, but they could have done the job so much easier, so much cheaper. And I was their guy. Like, why did you go around me? Well, I think this is a situation, once again, the kids get involved. And the kids online, and he's reading about how good this is. Everything's got to be Noctua and NEC 4K monitors. If it ain't the best, the kid says it's not good enough. And the kid's got no real life experience. He's in his early 20s, and he's overconfident, I think, trying to prove his worthiness, and he's trying too hard. Just take it to step back a little bit, kid. The people and the other employees, they said, you got to fire your kid. He's driving us crazy.
Well, and that's the thing, is the kid's neck on the line if something goes wrong.
So the kid, here's where the status is. The kid went to college to be a lawyer like his dad, and his friend that he went to college with is the one he convinced his dad to hire to put in the Ubiquiti system. They called me and said, hey, we got this other guy that wants to put Wi-Fi into their building expansion. Is that okay? Yeah, knock yourself out. Then I get calls, our printers don't work anymore. I go to see what's going on. This kid's done and never contacted me, never asked me a question about the network. Changed the IP range for God knows what reason. Had no consideration that some of the hard-coded, big Xerox copy machines were hard-coded. So they stopped working. The NAS stopped working. And I couldn't log into the Ubiquity to change. All he had to do was put the IP range back, and the router I had in place, he removed it. Nobody said that's what he was going to do. He didn't call me and ask me for any guidance, and they left me to fix everything he broke. So
that's why you got to say no up front from now on. Anytime somebody, even if it's something you don't do.
Well, I want to help her. I'm a helper. I'm a helper.
You got to be like, you just got to be like,
I'm going to do it and I'm going to complain about it. It's like the guy with the paper towels. but now the kid is such a pain in the ass that the dad has physically locked him out of the building. He's not allowed in the building anymore. The dad calls me and says, is it possible that the network that my son's friend put in is spying on us? Probably not, but I talked to the kid, and the kid goes, well, my dad's not letting me do to the office what I want to do to it. It's going to be mine soon. It's just a matter of time, and it's going to be mine. Can you imagine thinking of your father? As soon as he dies, all this is mine, and he won't be in my way anymore, when the kid never earned any of it.
That's rich people for you, right?
That makes me never want to be rich, if that's true.
Entitled people.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And he's a nice kid. He's just trying too hard. He's trying to prove how smart he is. And it's just be likable. Be likable. Don't be
growing him now. That's exactly how we're growing him now.
Be likable. Don't worry about how smart you are. Because if you want to prove how smart you are, you're not likable. I think likable has to come first. As long as you're a nice person, I don't care if you're smart or you're not, it doesn't matter. Just be nice. And this kid is not, he doesn't realize. He's trying so hard to prove I'm an adult and I can make decisions, and he's got everything's the best. And I'm going to let my friend put in this overkill system. And then, oh, by the way, Carey, can you maintain this for us? And we're not letting our kid in the building anymore. And I'm like, well, that's never the way I would have done it. Well, how would you have done it? Well, I'd replace all your cameras, and I'd replace the switch, and I'd use a Synology for the video recording, and I'd still be able to access it remotely and see the camera. Yes, you'd do all that, but it would have cost you about 75% less than what you spent, and I would have been able to maintain it. I don't know what to do with this. So now they keep the other guy on payroll, I guess, and I do everything else.
Yeah.
I like the people. I mean, it's not.
I answered this one question somebody threw in. Oh, that's right before we head out. Have you used GrandStream equipment? The short answer is no, although I have used GrandStream just for ATA devices, for fax machines when they got away from copper and we needed to do, turn a VoIP line into a fax line. That is the only time I've used GrandStream. But I've not ever looked at their other equipment. I know that they've gotten into networking equipments, unified communications. But to be honest, I'm one of those people where I get my stack and I'm comfortable with it. So I'm not really looking a lot to evaluate other stuff unless there's reason to think that that product might be better than what I'm using, or it's a vendor in the space that wants me to look at it for the podcast. There's a couple of companies that send me stuff from time to time. That's how I got into the Net Ally gear. They sent me the networking equipment to evaluate it. So I now use Net Ally stuff for that. To be honest, GrandStream, I only saw it as a phone company. So I never considered it for networking, although I see that they've got networking products now. So that's the answer. If you've got a reason for me to look at it, and you're still listening, is that Terry?
Terrell?
Terrell, okay. Yeah, either send me a message, email me, find me on the socials and send me a link, and I'll check it out.
And a perfect point to say goodbye. A long show, but long overdue. Thank you so much. We need to have you back more often, Marv.
Thanks for having me. Just let me know.
Love having these discussions. I hope the audience gets a better idea from enthusiast to professional. It's not like I'm better than you or anything. It's just a very different type of work. And if it inspires you and you say, well, I could do that, do it. That's what we're here to help with as well. So not only can we help both Marv and myself with any computer problems you might be having, when it comes to like the business side of things, you know, that's really Marv's specialty with how do I market it and what sort of tools should I be using? And, you know, between the two of us, you have great resources that were neither available to us when we were starting, which I'll speak on your behalf, but probably why you do this, to provide information available to others that wasn't available to you.
Yeah.
And that's why I do it. And we always invite interaction with you guys, and don't be shy, and be sure if you're interested on the business side, if you want to dip a toe into that, check out the IT Business Podcast, because there's not a lot like that. I mean, there's more today than there was 20 years ago, but coming from a real true life person that runs a business and shares, you know, actual experience in that theory, you know, you're getting genuine information, and that can really help guide you. Whereas in the old days, you'd just be told to go get a certification and somehow magically that fixes problems. This is far more practical, and you can't beat the price. So thank you again, Marv. And it's always a pleasure having you here. Thank you to all of our members and everybody joining us in the chat room for hanging out with us today. Thanks to Mara in the background there, that she's already edited all the video notes to include all your links while we've been talking. Yeah. And a shout out to our friend Buster out in Scotland, who sends an Amazon gift card prior to the show to show his support, and to all of our members for showing their support. Without you guys, these shows would not exist. And that's going to wrap it up. You can hear Marv. When's your next show?
Let's see. I've got an audio show coming out tomorrow, but the next live show will be Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
That's the normal time?
That's the normal time for the live show.
There you go. So set that on your calendars or schedule it, and enjoy. Thank you so much, and we will look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Until next time. Bye.